lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
And a half-second lead. Oh, with the sizzling car in the background.
He has it. Oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive, massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Winton Motor Raceway for round 6 of the AMS Oz Super 2 series. A return to the sprint race format tonight. We've got a pair of very, very quick 20-lap sprint races to come up, which will be for races 8 and 9 of this season. It's shaping up to be a nice little championship so far. There's always a good turnout of drivers, and no exception tonight. Plenty of drivers in the server, right on our average. And everyone's going to have their elbows out, effectively. There's quite a lot of bragging rights, I guess, at stake at a circuit like this. It's a self-proclaimed action track of Australia. And are we going to get another first-time winner like we did last time out? Well, we're probably about half an hour away from deciding who's going to be in the prime position to get on the podium's top step tonight. So it's a little bit of an unusual feeling at the moment for me. My name, as per usual, as those of you who are watching for the first time may not know, or those of you who have listened into the broadcasts before, my name is Steve DeVries, aka they call me Nether, from AMS Oz and from Apex Rear Wing, and it's only just me here tonight. Normally I've got Hans Brunswick alongside me. He comes in and commentates with me from this place that I call home, and he is a little bit under the weather today, unfortunately, so at the moment, set to be a solo effort, much like my efforts were for the 90 minutes of Sepang in the AMS Oz GT3 World Challenge back a couple of weeks ago, which I somehow managed to get through a 90-minute race plus a qualifying session and an intro, so probably going to have a similar situation here tonight. So please bear with me if there's some long pauses in this broadcast. It's certainly not intended, but it's a bit hard to keep track of where everybody is when there's only one of you doing the broadcasting and the commentary and keeping your eye on the track. It is quite a challenge. Well, the practice session has just finished up, and a big surprise, the man at the head of the timesheets is actually Josh Ben. He got his first points of the season, actually, at the last round at Barbagallo with a 7th place finish. He was a DNF at the Phillip Island race before that. We're just going to stay, actually just going to keep an eye on things here, because there is a short pause in the changeover between practice and the race session. There is a little bit of a server reset that needs to take place, which means it gives us a bit of an opportunity to not only get back in the server, but it gives us an opportunity to talk about the points situation. So here's your driver points on the screen. The man at the top, and by quite some considerable margin there, he's got a 324 point gap at the moment. Phil Boak with the only one of two men with 2 race wins, and his teammate Brenton Foley there in 3rd place, the other man with 2 wins. Very close proximity to Brendan Ross's Brenton Foley. Only 3 points separate those guys. Foley's challenge at this point in time has been scuppered by a pair of disconnects. The first 2 races of the season, the Adelaide round and the first race of the Australian Grand Prix round at Albert Park. 2 disconnects. Apart from that, he's had 2 wins, 2 second places, and a 3rd in the last 5 races out of the 7 that he's contested, and then obviously the other two DNFs. Cam Rutledge been going on quite solidly as well. He's not out of the fight for 3rd and 2nd overall in the series. And then he's actually our lead Pro-Am runner. We haven't spoken much about Pro-Am and Pro points, but he is our lead Pro-Am runner up there in 4th place, teaming up with Will Devonish, who's there in 5th. Mitchell Hathaway, the man who won the very first race of the season from the back of the grid in Adelaide, he's still there in 6th place. And as we work our way down, JP Coeurrier, first-time winner. Last time out in the series at Barbagallo Raceway, and himself and Mitchell Hathaway chalking up their inaugural wins in AMS Oz this season. So good to see that we get a couple of first-time winners, not only in this season, but in this year we've had a couple of first-time winners in a couple of categories as well. We get on to tonight's racing. Here it is, Winton Motor Raceway, the self-proclaimed action track of the Supercars series. It was put together in the late 1950s, and it all came together with the first race in 1961. So it's been around a very, very long time. Had gone through a couple of iterations. There's the shortened circuit, which goes pretty much straight on at turn number 10. And then there's the national layout, which is the layout we race tonight. It's the layout that the Supercars race. 12 turns, 4 to the left, 8 to the right. We've got two 20-lap sprints, and each 20-lap sprint is approximately 60 k's each. The circuit's got a bit of everything, so it's got some straights, it's got some technical corners, got sweeping corners, got some slow bends as well, some 90-degree corners. So there's a little bit of everything here. There's only a very, very slight change in elevation. There's nothing really too heavy in that regard, but with the good go the bad. And the bad is there's always opportunities for drama to emerge here. Turns 1 and 2, we've seen people go side by side through there. We've seen people hit the outside fence at turn number 2. I've personally seen it happen last year in the Victorian State Series at this very, very circuit. The commentary box actually sits between turns 2 and 3, and we've seen one of the XLs in the Circuit XL series hit the outside wall hard and the car rolled. So very, very easy to make a mistake there. Diving under brakes, you've got to be very, very committed to make a pass here. There's not a lot of opportunity for slipstream. It's not got the long sort of straights that Sandown has and that Phillip Island have, and those long sweeping corners where you can carry that sort of speed and really get right up to the back of somebody. But then the other thing to think about too is the rejoin from pit road. So shouldn't be too much of an issue here, given it's a sprint race format. But if you do need to come into the pits for any reason to repair damage, or if you're rejoining the circuit during the qualifying session as well, then you've got to pay attention about how you get off pit road, because it does feed in to the left-hand bend at turn 1 very, very quickly. It's a very, very short run from the pit lane exit to there, and you have to pay very, very close attention to who's on the circuit or who's coming down the main straight as you exit the lane. There can be a little bit of a coming together, and the traditional racing line is on the right-hand side of the circuit, sweeping in for the left as per usual. And that will be a very bit of a talking point, I guess, in this qualifying session that we are working ourselves up towards, as the server has just come back up and we're just waiting for everybody to get themselves in. And then we will be going straight to our qualifying session. The format hasn't changed. Still get your 2 flying laps in, and that determines the grid for the sprint race coming up very, very shortly. I want to take this moment while we are just waiting for everybody to get themselves back into the server. I'm just going to bring up the AMS Oz GT3 World Challenge calendar, because as some of you are probably aware, I do the broadcast for the GT3 World Challenge on a Sunday night, and there wasn't a broadcast that happened on the Sunday night gone just recently. There was quite a low turnout, so we elected to postpone that particular race and the one after it. So on the calendar here, you can see the two at the very bottom of the calendar, the Circuit of the Americas in the USA and the Road America race in the USA, now have 2 new dates. So the next race for the GT3 World Challenge takes place on the 9th of June. That'll be a 90-minute race around the Circuit of the Americas. And then a couple of weeks later, Road America plays host to the 2-hour finale. And it's shaping up to be a very, very, very tight series for that hotly contested championship. GT3 very, very popular. The top 3 drivers only separated by less than a race win, and in theory the 4th place man is still mathematically in the hunt, but needs an awful lot to go his way to try and have any hope of getting up there. So like I said, mathematically he's still in it, but for some reason I don't see him actually making any inroads, and that is Rob Crisdale or Oz Rob. So it's really going to come down to Lewis Wedding, Brennan Ross and Brenton Foley as to who takes honours in the GT3 World Challenge. Alright, well what we'll do is we will pick up some of the on-track action going on right now in the race session. Oh, it's not just the race session, but it's just the warm-up session before we get into qualifying, having the server been reset in the last few minutes, and just waiting on the last few drivers to make their way back into the server. We did have 19 runners when the server was reset. I think we're up to about 17 at the moment, so just waiting on a couple more to get back in, and then we should be going live to qualifying in a few moments time. So on your screen here, Mitchell Hathaway in the HDS Racing Commodore, just coming down to turn 3 here. As we said, he was the man who took honours at the very first race of the season in the Adelaide round. Very, very difficult round. It was a twilight round, an earlier bit of attrition, early safety car as well, and he drove from the very, very back of the grid to the front in fine form. Nobody could go with him. It was just a matter of time before he sized past Phil Boak, who ultimately took second in that race for the race victory. And basically once he got past, he was gone. There was no way in hell anybody was going to catch him. It's a class of the field all night long in that very, very first race. So he's had a little bit of a rough patch as of late, has Mitchell Hathaway. He's had in the last 3 races, he's had a pair of DNFs. DNF at the second race at Symmons Plains, a DNF at Phillip Island, and somewhat returned to form. He finished 4th at Barbagallo in the end. He's involved in quite a humdinger of a battle at 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th place, guys. We're all changing positions in that particular race. His worst result on the season so far is a 7th place at the first race that took place at the Grand Prix circuit, the Albert Park Grand Prix circuit in race 2. So he's actually, despite his 2 DNFs, he's actually done pretty well this season. Just in the last couple of weeks, he's just wandered a little bit, and as a result, he finds himself down in 6th place. Definitely not out of it. Only a handful of points behind Will Devonish in the CRE Motorsport ZB Commodore as well. So still plenty of time for him to make up some positions in the championship. It's only races 8 and 9, and still well over half the season still to go. At the moment, his best lap times are 23.6. Not too shabby at all. Pretty respectable lap time. I think we saw some drivers getting into the low 23s just before the race, before the practice session was cut short so the server could be restarted. And I'm now noticing, just as the drivers who are on the circuit just start to get their eye in again, looks like we've got a new driver, or potentially a driver with an alter ego, who's there up there in 4th place. We've got some word that might be Lewis Wedding in alter ego disguise, but we'll come to that a little bit later on when we have some time. But for the moment, Hathaway's time there's a 24.9, so quite some considerable margin off his current PB in this little brief session before we flick over to qualifying. There's your man who's got the top time at the moment, Phil Boak, 23.3. He was bettered by Josh Ben in the last practice session. Let's see if we can pick up if Josh Ben's in the server at the minute. So here's Mitchell Hathaway's teammate, Billy Dougal Salonga, involved in a spectacular rollover at the Phillip Island round, and was collected by his teammate as well. Eliminated both HDS cars on the spot, coming through the last corner. Got a bit out of shape, hit the wall, rolled the car, and teammate did everything he could to avoid him. Unfortunately, they were both a Gornsky immediately when that happened. There was no way they could get back around and repair that damage, and were very lucky not to get a safety car when that happened as well. So his best time at the moment is good enough for 8th. Just working through our list to see if we can find Josh Ben. Here he is. So he's just popped up into 5th place in this session. Just a little bit deep under brakes there too, going into turn number 1 in the PBF Pro-Am car, and that he's had enough for the time being. Let's see who else we've got running around at the moment. So Steve Burko in the Starbucks car. He's just coming out of turn 10 on the shoot down to turn 11 and 12. Pit entry off to the left here. There it is. You can see it. So it's a relatively straightforward entry into the pits. That's not a problem. It's the pit exit that becomes the dilemma. Steve Burko, having run the Starbucks car with what was ultimately a BMW-looking grille for a while, looked a little bit weird in the opening couple of rounds of this season, but looks much better with an FG Falcon guys on it, or proper FG Falcon guys on it. All right, looks like we're rolling over into the qualifying session as we've just frozen all that briefly. So I believe, and yes, we have rolled over into the qualifying session. So the car, we've got plenty of cars missing. As you can see, they're not quite fully loaded in just yet. So hopefully not too far away from them loading into the session so we can actually get this underway. And we have seen this a little bit recently too, as much as as recently as last night too in the ARW League testing for the DRM Season 8. We did have some synchronizing issues with a number of drivers just having to wait for the mod to continue loading properly. So I hope we haven't got sort of a repeat of that for the moment. And what we might just do very quickly is just go back to our holding screen for the moment and just be 100% sure that everything's going to cooperate before we get going again. We've got 18 drivers in the server at present. It is rolled over to the qualifying session. We're just waiting to see what on earth happens next. And what we'll do for a couple of seconds is just take a brief break and we'll wait for the server to get itself in order. We'll be back in just a moment. Alrighty, so it looks like we've now just about set to go with the qualifying session. A couple of cars have already electing to make their way out onto the track, so let's pick up the action and see who we've got. I believe we've got Turmo at the end of the pit lane. We've also got another car that's just the pit lane. We'll try and get through them all. Yep, so there we go. So we've got Turmo's already out on the circuit. Glenn Miles electing to take to the circuit, and D2, or Dwayne Davies as we call him. That's actually a rather nice looking livery there, the John Player Special, the old tribute to the Lotus in the Formula One world. He's just about to get past Glenn Miles here, but the man who's on track at the moment left the pit lane first is Turmo in the Castrol Racing, the 715 Nissan Altima. We look onto our point standings to see where he is in all of this. He hasn't been doing too badly. He's there in 7th place. He's got a reasonable gap over Ricky Slick behind him, but has got a little bit of ground still to make up on Mitchell Hathaway. So he's been doing quite nicely. He's the lead Nissan Altima, 777 points total, and a best raced result finish of 4th at Phillip Island. 1 DNF on the season, which was the first race at the Simmons Plains sprint event, which was race 4 out of the races conducted so far. So he's the man we'll keep an eye on to begin with. There were 18 drivers in the server here. The 19th man, who doesn't look like he's made it back in time, is Cam Rutledge. Cam Rutledge, as I said before, is 4th in the championship, so unsure as to what's happened to him. Hopefully he'll get back in, otherwise he'll be starting from the back of the grid. But let's keep an eye on the Castrol Racing car here as he comes across the line. Now, he's not registered a time as he's crossed the line there, so I think maybe he's gone before the red light was shown, so we might see if we can pick up Dwayne Davies instead. No, it looks like he's he's got a time on his screen now, so that looks good. So we might stay with D2 actually, through turns 1 and 2. Now over the rise, down through turn 3, swinging right, turn 4, another one of the right-handers. Not too much camber, relatively flat most of this circuit, and this is the chute between 4 and 5. Now the left-hander loads up the right-hand side of the car, the sweeper as they call it. And another little kink for turn 6. They tend to call rollover corner, I guess, because the curb tends to make the car want to roll if you get it in the wrong spot. Around turn 7. And now swinging and again loading up that right-hand side of the car for the left-hander at turn 8. This is the technical section of the circuit. Difficult to affect the pass here unless you make a mistake, but look for drivers to be paying attention if somebody does go a little bit wide to stick their nose in there. Now there's run between turn 9 and 10, 90 degree left-hander here. That's where the club circuit goes straight on and joins the circuit at turn, or just before turn 1. Hard brakes for turn number 11, one of the hardest stops on the circuit. Quick short chute to the right-hander at 12, and now the run to the line, and the time for D2 initially is a 26.8. In actual fact, Termo did end up setting a time of the 25.4. So for some reason, even though it didn't show up in our timing screens, he did actually set a time. And looking to see who the next man across the line is going to be, it's Steve Burko goes to the top, the 24.2. So time starting to drop relatively quickly here. Cracker comes up with a 2.6 seconds off the leader. Glenn Miles as well going through there, well, some 20 seconds off the lead, which is not a real representative time. As we watch Rhodey come through turn 7 and 8 now. Teammate to Josh Ben. Slightly different livery on this car. This is the green front compared to Josh Ben's red front, but the livery itself is actually the same in terms of the lion symbol and the other logos on the car. The 010. Now down to turn 10. 8 seconds off the leader's pace at the moment. Running in the Pro-Am category is Rhodey. He's been here in real life in the Formula V, so should serve him in good stead. At least the track knowledge will be there. Just not attacking the circuit as much as he probably needs to make lap time. He's going to post a time. It's probably going to be about a 33.34, and it's a 33.8 for Rhodey. Now Foley goes to the top. So Foley to the top with a 23.7. First man under the 1 minute 24 second barrier in this qualifying session. But the man I'm interested in is not out there on the circuit just yet. Is he? No, yes he is. It is Josh Ben, and he's up by a fraction of a second at the second timing split and looking very, very good. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle there in the car. Wanted to get away from him under braking for turn 10, so that'll cost him. If he hadn't made up some time off the turn 10 corner, then that will have cost him dearly. In the 91, and driving to the line, and yeah, it did cost him. That cost him pretty much his best lap now. So he's got one more opportunity to go again, but he's provisionally second on the grid and been looking very, very quick. Actually looking for a drive at Winton in the upcoming State Series in the next in 2 weeks' time as Josh Ben. Has been hitting up a couple of the drivers and team owners or car owners on the Facebook pages to see what he wants to do, trying to get a ride in an improved production car if he can. Billy Dougal-Salonga now jumps up into P2, and look at that, fractions of a second ahead of Josh Ben as well. Just pipped him, so still inside the 24 second barrier, and still Foley the only man under the 1 minute 24 barrier for the moment. As the VF Commodore of Josh Ben swings through these final parts of the technical section of the course, or the northern or the northeastern end of the course. Let's have a look at what the split time is when he gets off of turn 10. A little bit of a lock up into turn 9. Looks pretty good. That's a similar time to what he was up the last time around. Got to get his braking absolutely spot on this time for turn 10. That looks a little bit better. He hasn't gone as deep, so this should be set to move him up the order, at least ahead of Billy Dougal-Salonga, but is it going to be enough to get ahead of Brenton Foley? The answer to that question is yes, and by 2 1/4 tenths of a second. Nice lap, Josh Ben. 1:23.5 is now the new benchmark. Devonish pops up into P2. Devonish now ahead of Foley by 4,000. Yeah, actually look at that there. 4 tenths, 400ths, 4,000ths of a second. And Foley's done too. Foley's done all his laps, and Devonish has still got one more. Great lap from Will Devonish on his first flying lap. Let's see what the split time is, and he's up. He's up on the pole sitters time as well. Josh Ben getting out of the way there and letting Will have the preferred line into turn 7. It was very, very smooth at the moment. Will Devonish flying the flag for the CRE electrical guys at the moment, with Cam Rutledge unfortunately out of qualifying, hasn't made the server. Bit of a wiggle there for Will Devonish. He just wanted to put the power down a little bit too early, and it squirmed, but it hasn't hurt his time. He's actually up well and truly on his PB, and fractionally up on Josh Ben at the moment. So could we be staring at a pole provisionally for Devonish if he can keep it together? Looks nice and tidy through turn 11. A little bit of curb through turn 12. That won't hurt him too much. He used as much of the exit curb as he dared. Has he got it in him to supplant Bennon? Yes, he has. A 23.759 going to the top. In actual fact, it's a 23.517. It's actually not updated on the visuals there, but on live races it has gone a 23.517. So fractionally ahead. Will Devonish, great job. Ricky Slick out to turn his first few laps. So again, only get 2 flying laps. Oh, he's disappeared for some reason there. So not 100% sure what's. We might have some server trouble here. I would think, just by looking at what the times are at the moment and who hadn't yet set any representative times. So a little bit weird. Something strange has unfortunately happened with the server, but Will Devonish did jump to the top there with a 23.517 ahead of Josh Ben by 0.02 of a second, literally 0.02 of a second. And Foley was third from Billy Dougal Salonga before the server glitches come about. So again, we might just take a few moments here to wait and see what exactly happens. Not 100% sure what's happened server-wise, but definitely some sort of issue has unfortunately brought this qualifying session that was looking very, very entertaining to an abrupt halt. And we're just looking through the rest of the list as well, just to see who else had registered some time. So Turmo was behind Steve Burko, so that was 5th and 6th. Dwayne Davies 7th, Cracker 8th, Mitchell Hathaway 9th, and Rhodey was 10th at the time that the server had some sort of issues. But I'm not sure. Maybe this might be on our end here, that we've got some sort of dilemma, because the live race still looks like it's got some sort of lap times being registered at the moment. So for the moment, there's only half a dozen or a couple of drivers that hadn't actually set any representative times. JP Coeurrier, Aldo Benedetti, who we believe is the alter ego of Lewis Wedding for today, Brennan Ross and Ricky Slick, and Phil Boak, the only drivers that had not set any times and only had about 4 minutes left in the session to do so. So we're going to see if we can get ourselves sorted for the moment. We'll just keep an eye on proceedings and see how everything is going. And for the moment, Phil Boak is in the lane, and looks like he might be going for a lap. Actually, in fact, JP Coeurrier has now set his first flying lap time, puts himself up into P4 provisionally, a 23.9. Last round's race winner, and with a good initial flying lap. We've got Ricky Slick. Where's he at the moment? He's actually just coming across the line to set his first flying lap right now, and his effort is good enough to launch him up into 11th place, a 29.0. So that's actually quite a slow lap. We're just working his way into it. The next man that will come across the line while we're waiting to try and get back into the server here will be Brennan Ross, followed by Aldo Benedetti. And it looks like they actually might be on outlaps here, so they haven't actually set times just yet, but just judging by what I'm seeing on my screen, they might be just coming around to start their first flying laps, and or their times are taking a bit of time to register. In fact, Brennan Ross's registered times are 25.5. Benedetti definitely didn't register a time that time around. And Ricky Slick's going to have his time. JP Coeurrier goes to the top. JP Coeurrier to the top at 23.1. So not very far away at all from breaking into that 1 minute 22 second lap time. But the winner from Barbagallo a couple of weeks ago launches himself up into pole position by a very healthy margin over Will Devonish. Got nearly 4/10 of a second on him. It's a great job from the man who commands the JP Simshed 888 racing car with only 1 minute and 50 seconds left in the qualifying session. All remaining drivers now on the track. So Boak, Benedetti, Ricky Slick, Brennan Ross, And JP Coeurrier has had his 3 laps, or his 2 flying laps, and he is done. So only a couple of drivers left to improve. As to the line comes Brendan Ross to complete his next flying lap. And in actual fact, he ends up in 8th place. So in actual fact, we have got our session back. So we'll just quickly flick over and rejoin that session. So Brendan Ross has now moved up into 8th place. The man that we're interested in now is this man, Benedetti. So 6th at the moment after first flying lap. And this is his last chance. So very, very good initial launch up the order here. Oh, and he's out in the weeds there as well, out in the marbles. That would not be healthy for his lap time. Really pushing the limits of this Alitalia or Scuderia Alitalia Falcon. Normally at the hands of Brian Walsh and Mike Coulston, both unavailable for this particular race meeting. So they've handed the reins over to, well, we're going to assume it's a rookie, but in reality we believe it's not a rookie at the wheel here. Rare night off. 7/10 off the pace of the front runner at the moment, Benedetti. So that would be good enough at the moment to launch up the order just a little bit more. Maybe gain an extra place or two. It should be good enough to launch up into to 2nd overall if you keep it together. The time is good enough for 5th, so lost a little bit of time in that final sector, but good run up the order. So 5th place for the man on debut. Now we've got one more driver out on the circuit, and it is Phil Boak. So this is his last opportunity to launch himself up the order. Have a look at his lap time from his first flying lap. It was 1:49.6. It's very, very uncharacteristic of the series leader at the moment. As you said, he's got a 324-point margin to Brendan Ross. And that's a much better split time, but he's still 2.6 seconds off the leader's pace. So that's going to slot him right into the midfield, probably right around where Brendan Ross is if he keeps this sort of pace up. So either not feeling comfortable or not enough practice, or something's not quite right with the PBF race engineering driver at the moment. In actual fact, he ends up P12, so a little bit worse than what we actually thought. Lost a lot of time too. Look how much time he lost in that last sector as well. Really fell away. So the points leader ends up 12th, and his nearest challenger ends up in 8th place. But hats off to this man. He's continued his form from Barbagallo Raceway and backs up his first race win with a pole position. Great job for JP Coeurrier, and alongside him it's going to be Will Devenish. So front row berth for Will Devenish for the very first time in this season. Great job all round, guys. Now what we will do for the next few minutes or so is we will take a proper break. Hopefully we'll be able to make sure these server issues are getting sorted out, and that we're going to be right to call this race for you and the next sprint race coming up in about 10 minutes time. Welcome back to the AMS Oz Super 2 season from Winton Motor Raceway. Round 6 for races 8 and 9 of the championship season. With that little break that we just took, we had a bit of an opportunity to listen to the driver's briefing, which was conducted by Brenton Foley. Him and Phil Boak have been the premier organisers of the Super 2 season for AMS Oz. And it's just interesting to have a bit of a listen to what they actually had to say. So obviously making mention of the fact that it's a sprint race format tonight, so pit stops not being required. So one of the little things that we did mention at the top of the show was that if you did need to come into the pits for any reason to repair damage, that you would have to watch out for your rejoin coming out of the pit exit into turn number 1. There was also some comments made about making sure that if you end up bumping another driver off the circuit accidentally, if you've got your elbows out, that you need to watch your rejoin. You need to make sure that you rejoin on the circuit as quickly as possible, because if you miss some of the markers, what they call the track markers around this point, where it keeps a timing loop on how far away you are from the car ahead and the car behind, that potentially if you miss one of them, you would go a lap down, and it has happened here in the past. So the emphasis on making sure when you rejoin safely, but you also rejoin as quickly as possible was also made. There was also some comments been made from previous races that have happened, and we did see this happen at the event at Barbagallo, where drivers that were being passed under blue flags, so they were a lap down, were actually sitting on the racing line and making the other cars go the long way around. What the emphasis was made was to make sure that if that is the case, that you are being passed under blue flags, that you give the preferred line to the car that's overtaking. You don't make it difficult for them to do so. You know, in some cases we understand if a car catches you at a particular corner, you're already partway through the corner, you can't immediately get out of that particular corner to let them pass, but you let them pass as quickly as you can when it's safe to do so, but you don't hold them up on the racing line, otherwise you potentially interfere with a battle for position and interfere with the race result. So they didn't want to see any of that happening. There wasn't any real questions after that. Most of the drivers know by now how to behave themselves. That the standard of driving has gone up quite significantly over the last couple of rounds, which is good to see. Not as many incidents in the last time out at Barbagallo. We ended up overall, how many DNFs here? I'm just rating them up as we go. We had 6 DNFs out of the 20 car field that started, and it's actually stabilised relatively well in the last sort of 2 rounds. We did have one disqualification for JP Coeurrier at Phillip Island as well, which was a black flag situation. I think he didn't serve a penalty that was given to him for speeding in the pit lane. Actually, I don't think from memory he knew how to serve it when that came up. So the standard of driving has started to get a little bit better, which is good to see. There's not as many accidents, not as many incidents where drivers are bumping and running into each other. So most of the DNFs these days tend to be through attrition or driver mistakes. But in actual, the overall driver-to-driver incidents have come down quite significantly, which is good to see. Talking points. Well, some talking points about this circuit. We did say it's an action track, or the self-proclaimed action track, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of action we get, whether we get some elbows out into the first couple of corners. I mean, you can go side by side through the first 2 corners here, but as we always say, you need a willing participant, if I can get it out, to be able to do it. And at the moment, plenty of drivers have gone side by side with each other through some of these corners over the course of practice. That's a bit of an incident there for, as Brendan Ross just shooting across turn number 1 and 2. So a number of drivers already trying to push the limits through the first couple of corners here. The one thing that we do want to pick up on is the start. The start's going to be very, very important here. It's a similar distance in terms of from where the starting position is and the starting line is to turn 1 as it is from at Adelaide. So the pole position is on the right-hand side of the circuit, which is the clean side of the circuit. So position on the track, very, very important, whether you're actually on the racing line side of the circuit or whether you're on the non-racing line part of the circuit. If you can get your launch right, you need to time it absolutely perfectly. Another thing that we've got to think about here is the warm-up laps. So you've got to get all those tyre pressures, all that the heat into those tyres absolutely right. That contributes to your start quite substantially here because it's such a short run. If you can have that set up absolutely nailed and have all your temperatures right, your tyre pressures right, your launch is going to be very, very good. And it's all about minimising the wheel spin off the line. So getting away as cleanly and as quickly as possible. And we've seen a couple of drivers be able to master that quite well. We haven't seen any real incidents off the start line since JP Coeurrier's no-go at the back of the grid at race 1 in Adelaide. Everything else apart from that's been relatively good. So drivers have been able to get off the start line quite quickly and quite well. Well, the session's just winding down here. We've got 2 minutes left in this warm-up session. Bit hard to predict what's going to happen here. We've seen at the moment that JP Coeurrier was at the top of the standings after qualifying, but at practice on the longer distance runs, for the 20 lap distance runs, it was Josh Ben who was right up there as well. So he's starting out of the second row, Josh Ben. So I would be looking for him to throw down an early challenge in the early couple of laps, just to see what he can actually do. He's had some good runs. He did have a very, very good run going at Phillip Island when he debuted in the series. Unfortunately, he didn't finish from that race, but he did have a seventh. His first point scoring finish was a 7th place at the last round at Barbagallo. So he's got 192 points to his name. Sits 19th overall in the point standings behind Glenn Miles, who's run every race. Oh, sorry, run every race, but he's been present for most of the races. He's 2 DNFs, a 16th and 18th and a 14th are his 3 results. So 234 in terms of points to 192 for Josh Ben. So can still make an impression here, Josh Ben. And we know he's definitely fast, not only in this series but in the real world. He's just got to be able to put it all together. He sort of falls into that category that sort of JP Coeurrier did from an early point of view. Had a few early troubles and has managed to find the pace. He just needs to put it all together. And this is a prime opportunity for him to do so. Starting off the second row of the grid is definitely a very, very good result there. And as I think we saw Steve Burko just clout the wall there at turn number 2. Going to be also interesting to watch turn 2 tonight, especially on his opening couple of laps if we've got drivers battling for position. They've got to be very, very careful not to put each other too far off the road if they're side by side into turn 2. And the racing line traditionally, as you can see from the tyre marks, there goes out toward that side of the circuit. But you don't want to be going too far beyond the red and white painted curbs. Otherwise, there is a nice concrete wall waiting there for you. Clock has gone 0. Clock has gone 0 in this session. And now all the drivers will take a few moments to get themselves together, finish their flying laps. Oh, that's it's a bit of a wild moment, and we've actually just seen, as you can see from the tyre bouncing across the screen there, that would either be Cracker or Brownie, whoever produced that little incident at the turn 2 wall. That's hopefully what we are trying to avoid tonight. Well, you heard it from the siren. That is the warning sign for all the drivers to get themselves together, get themselves in the server, get their setups right, get their fuel loads right, and get out onto this grid for the race tonight. So the first of 2 races, 20 laps on the clock. Not a time certain race, so it will finish the 20 laps regardless of how long it takes. And we might have a slight delay here, I think, just while all the cars are sorting themselves out. I think we might have this little freezing dilemma again where we just have to wait for the game to play a little bit of catch-up. Let's actually go and see if that's the case. Looks like some of the cars are getting themselves together, and here we go. First of the few cars are lining up on the grid, starting with the pole sitter. And now we'll Devonish alongside Josh Ben off the second row there. You can see him just in the back on the left-hand side of shot. So a pair of ZB Commodores on the front row. Both of them have gone for that chrome finish livery look. Alright, the formation lap is underway here. So let's have a quick look at this field. JP Coeurrier, as we said, he's got the pole position, backs up from his first victory in AMS Oz Super 2 with pole position. So can he carry that form on? Or is he going to be under threat from some of these quick guys behind? He wasn't that far ahead of Will Devonish. Actually, at the end of the day, he was ahead of Will Devonish by 0.4 of a second. Will Devonish occupies P2. Second row of the grid, Josh Ben, great job. Up to third place. He will be one to watch. Starting alongside is going to be Brenton Foley. Only could manage fourth. He's had a relatively good qualifying session today, but not as what he'd hoped for. He's had better. He's running a Craig Lowndes livery there, so we will have a bit of a discussion about that a bit later on, mention what that's all about if you can't work it out already. Aldo Benedetti, the lead of the Falcons, in 5th place in the Scuderia Alitalia, the Brian Walsh car. We go back through the field. Billy Dougal Salonga just ahead of him. He's on the third row of the grid. Out qualifies the more experienced teammate in Mitchell Hathaway. Steve Burko in the Top Gear Racing Starbucks Falcon is in 7th place. Brendan Ross, the first of the FCR Motorsport Commodores, in P8. Your top 10 is rounded out by Mitchell Hathaway, the second of the HDS Racing ZB Commodores, and Termo, the first of the Nissans, in the 715 Castrol Racing Altima. D2 on his return hasn't done too badly. He's in the D2 Racing FG Falcon. It has previously campaigned the Marcus Ambrose car. Phil Boak, well out of place. 12th place is not where he expected to be. He's going to have a fight on his hands to get through this field. Ricky Slick is in the pit lane, so he's obviously starting from the pit lane at this point. So he would have been in 13th place alongside this man, Cracker, in the Cracker Racing Team ZB Commodore. Rhodey, he's probably his best qualifying session for a while, starting out of P15 with Gary Neville in the third of the FCR Motorsport cars alongside. Glenn Miles, second of the Altimas, out of 17th. Cam Rutledge starting at the back because he didn't take part in qualifying, and just behind him, the second of the Cracker Racing Team cars in Brownie. Now JP Coeurrier has been sitting at the front of the field for quite some time here, so not what he would have wanted. All these tyre pressures will be going down, the temperature in the tyres and the brakes will be going down. We've got a fantastic view to see what the jump is going to be. Is it going to be Devonish to get ahead on the outside for turn 1, or can JP hold him off? Just waiting for the last few guys to get a position. Let's go racing at Winton. Lights out. Away we go. Great launch from both drivers at the front. Very, very even start, but JP has the whole shot on the inside line here for turn number 1 and has it ahead by car length here. Brenton Foley's out-dragged Josh Ben for P3 at that. In actual fact, Josh Ben slipping back into the clutches and actually been passed by Billy Dougal Salonga back there as well. And a full course caution immediately. Full course caution immediately. So what's happened? It's Gary Neville. Gary Neville has unfortunately had an incident here. Let's see if we can pick this up. We will get this on a replay. He was at the back of the field. Oh, he became a little bit of a pinball there. He came together, Cam Rutledge, and when he turned one of the other cars there. I think that would be Brownie, and he's lost a bonnet too, Gary Neville. So, unfortunately, I think, it was Brownie that he's had that incident with. Looks like there's not too much damage on the 17th place man, Brownie there. But unfortunately for Gary Neville, he is the cause of the safety car. And we actually just caught a glimpse of Ricky Slick waiting in the pit lane. Now normally, and he's on his way now, so that's good to see. As we just pick up the replay proper. So he's now been released. In actual fact, that's a free kick for Ricky Slick as well, because traditionally what happens in Automobilista when the safety car comes, when you start from the pit lane, I should say, you start a full sector behind the pack. So he would have had to wait until they had gone down through to turn 5, and he would have already been nearly half a lap behind them. by the time that happens. So this is a real free kick for him. This will put him right back onto the pack as they all slow down to follow the safety car. Now, the safety car's already on the run down to turn number 3. Should be through turn 3 now. Timing's starting to update for us as all the positions change here. So the front two remain as they started. Coeurrier from Devonish. Foley managed to get ahead of Josh Ben off the start and take third place away from him. Billy Dougal-Salonga also managed to get the pass done on Josh Ben for fourth before the safety car was called. So that relegates Josh Ben down to fifth. Benedetti stayed where he started in sixth place. Burko and Brendan Ross also stayed where they started, seventh and eighth. Boak has moved up from 12th to 9th. A good start for Philip Boak, getting a handful of cars already in the first couple of corners. Rounding out the top 10, Mitchell Hathaway, so he dropped back 1 or 2 spots from where he started. Turmo was the man who started in 10th place in the Nissan Altima. He's 11th. Rhodey has moved up from 15th to 12th in all that melee. So good launch for him. D2's gone backwards to 13th. Cam Rutledge 14th. Glenn Miles 15th. Cracker, and then Ricky Slick is now on the back of Cracker. And Brownie's actually come into the pits. So there he is, just exiting the pits there. And safe to exit the pit lane quite comfortably because the pack is on the back straight. So got a bit, there he goes. You can just see in the back a shot there. Got a little bit of catching up to do. If the safety car's going for another lap, which it is, he should at least get onto the back of the pack for the restart, which will be good to see. And he'll have a little bit more tyre temperature than some of these guys as well if he can manage it just right. Not sure when the safety car's going to come in. We unfortunately don't have that sort of luxury of keeping an eye on what happens. All the fastest lap times now being registered, even though we're behind the safety car, because the first lap was a standing start, and then the safety car was called for immediately. Now, if anybody had decided to underfuel, and yes, when we talk about underfueling, I'm referring to a man who's done this several times, not only in ARW competition, but in AMS Oz competition. He knows who he is. I don't need to mention his name. But if anybody was a little bit marginal on fuel, this really makes sure and makes certain that they're not going to be marginal on fuel by the end of this race. And it does allow them to preserve their tyres a little bit as well, depending on what sort of setups people were running, the kind of driving style that they like to partake. Ooh, a little bit of a glitch there for JP Coeurrier, and just for our broadcasters, it looked like he was headed for the wall off the exit of turn 6. Not the case. A little bit of server lag perhaps. And they're rounding turn 8 here. Now Brownie's just crossing the start-finish line, or has just crossed the start-finish line, so if he can keep his pace up, he should catch the back of this snake, and probably at pace as well. So now Brendan Ross, what's happened to him? He's gone all the way down to 17th. So that's not good news in his fight with Phil Boak for the championship. And we're just looking to see if we pick up where Brownie is. He's actually down at turn 7, so he may not catch the back of this pack, and as we thought he might. Unless the safety car is going. No, safety car is in. Safety car is in, so this has not worked out for Brownie. Safety car's actually had a moment at the pit entrance there. It's hit the outside wall. JP Coeurrier goes early. Big restart. And he's really got some margin now. He's got 2 seconds. Meanwhile, back in the pack, it's still Devonish from Foley, from Billy Dougal-Salonga. Josh Ben had a little bit of a look. Aldo Benedetti's having a look on him. Behind them, we pick up the action. We can see here that Steve Burko is under attack from Brendan Ross, who's up to 8th. So a little bit of a timing glitch there. We thought he was a lot further down the standings than he was. Josh Ben goes through on Billy Dougal-Salonga, as does Aldo Benedetti, and now it's looking like Steve Burko's trying to buy into this as well. Benedetti trying to go the long way around on the marbles, and we've got a car off the circuit. Who's that? Is that? It's Will Devonish. What on earth happened to Devonish there? That was very, very, very unusual for him. Let's pick it up on just on this replay. It looked like did he get a bit of a love tap or something here, or did he do it all on his own? Well, he was out in the marbles there. Oh, I reckon he might have been turned. very possible that he got turned there. Let's just go back and see if we can pick up if there was a little bit of a touch there, or if he just got on the power a bit early. I think he may have been turned by Foley. We're not going to speculate much more beyond that, but I couldn't tell from that angle whether or not he actually was turned, but that's a disaster for Devonish. He's now down 17th place as JP Coeurrier sets the first real flying lap of this race. And look at the margin, he's got 3.6 seconds. Foley now moves up to P2, Josh Ben to P3, so Ben back on the podium, back where he started. And behind him, Billy Dougal-Salonga, who was almost rounded up by Benedetti there at this point in time on the previous lap. And we've got another full course caution. Full course cautions come out again. It's the second full course caution of this race. So this race gets nullified again as we look to see who the cause of that was. Well, Cracker's in the garage, so too is Roadie. I'm wondering whether or not Roadie's had a little bit of an issue somewhere. And yeah, on the replay and straight on and lost a wheel. Oh, and got run into as well. Oh, that's a big accident. Cracker involved in that. Who else is involved in that? I think Ricky Slick might have been involved in that as well. So that explains what happened there. So this strikes this is reminiscent of comments that have been made or thrown around the ARW commentary for a little bit of time. And to quote Stairs, inevitably whenever we praise some of these people for the kind of driving standards that they show, inevitably they fuck up. Pardon my French, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So some drivers that have been behaving themselves and doing very, very well, unfortunately, are the cause of these safety cars, and all happening at the same turn. So both occasions the safety car's been called for, we've had incidents down at the turn 1 and 2 chicane. Now this is a free kick for the drivers that ended up having to stop, or that stopped under the previous safety car, and allows them to get back onto the pack. But unfortunately for us, it does nullify this race, and unfortunately for JP Coeurrier, it means he's got to get the restart procedure right all over again. He absolutely nailed it on the previous attempt. Can he nail it again? Foley on the back of him here, followed by Josh Ben. Billy Dougal-Salonga out to 4th, Benedetti to 5th. Burko, Boak, Hathaway's moved back up to 8th. Turmo back inside the top 10, and D2 is also now back inside the top 10. Glenn Miles, P11, judging by what we can see on our timing screens. Good result for him in the Playboy racing car, the Spitwater Nissan Altima. We've also lost Cam Rutledge. He's sliding down the order, so something's happened to Cam Rutledge at some point. Not a great weekend or race session for him at the moment. Hopefully get himself organised for race number 2. Definitely has not been his race session so far. Let's see if there's any takers in the pit lane this time around. If you're toward the back of the grid and you're somebody like a Ricky Slick or a Will Devonish who have had unfortunate set of incidents, and Ricky Slick's been given a drive-through penalty here. So what's that for? We'll see if we can pick up where he is on the track. And he's having a very hard time controlling that car at the minute, which means he was in the pit lane. Just judging by where he is on track ahead of the safety car. So I think he's probably taken the liberties with the pit lane speed limiter there and just made sure he got out on track ahead of the safety car, as not to go a lap down and try and catch up to the back of the pack, try and make any sort of effort when we go back to green flag racing again. Now Devonish looks like he's okay. There's not a great deal of damage, if any at all, on the front of that ZB Commodore, the sole remaining CRE Motorsport car remaining. His teammate Cam Rutledge is out, as we said a few moments ago. Importantly for him, where he is on the moment at the circuit, just coming up to the sweeper, he will be right on the back of this pack. Now it looks like the person who was the cause of that last safety car has decided to put the helmet back in the locker for the moment, put the driving gloves away, and he's made his way up to have a chat here. It's Benjamin Rhodes. Benjamin, I'm assuming, based on what I saw on the broadcast, that you were the cause of this.
I was, yeah. I've noticed already, especially as these front guys were coming sort of back through. I mean, Ricky especially at the front, and another one, Cracker and Brownie both are quicker than me normally as well. So, like, they were braking easily 20, 30 metres later than I was, and I attribute that to just the amount of practice I got on the ungrippy track and then not bringing adaptions across to the gripped up version we've got now. So I went a little deeper at turn 1 thinking, yeah, we'll do it, and didn't quite do it. Got down the gears enough, but just didn't put enough brake on. So I was about 20 k's an hour too quick, and so ran wide at turn 1, clobbered the turn 2 apex curb, and then hit the tyre barrier on the outside. But the tyre barrier isn't modelled like a tyre barrier. So I took off a wheel and killed my engine, and then bounced back in front of Cracker, I believe it was.
Yeah, Cracker and Ricky Slick. Yeah, Cracker and Ricky Slick. We did see collected you there. Ricky Slick's missing a bonnet. Cracker's not finished this race as well, so it's unfortunate for him. I think he was also involved in an early incident with Gary Neville as well, so he's unfortunately been hit twice in this race. Gary Neville being the cause of the safety car the first time around, exactly the same corner. I mentioned this on the broadcast, and you'll remember this as well from when we were at Winton, almost this time 12 months ago, with Nathan Blight rolling his Hyundai XL at that same corner that you're talking about. Like, he literally climbed the wall and rolled that car, and then actually got hit while he was upside down as well, which red flagged that race. It's a turn that has presented its fair share of incidents in the past, and obviously tonight no exception. 2 safety cars caused by 2 incidents at exactly the same corner.
Exactly. It's a rather unassuming corner just on the face of it, but the placement of that wall and just the fact you have to have those tyre barriers there in real life, and they are modelled physically here. It's a great corner, but if you stop it up a little bit, it bites hard. Another thing which we luckily don't have rain here tonight, but if there was rain here, if it was properly modelled, that little patch that we also know about at the end of turn 2 would cause issues, because there's like a new patch of tarmac in amongst all the old stuff. So your tyres and your throttle foot is used to that low grip, and then you put the foot down, and then you spin on that new tarmac, and that many cars I've seen spin in the wet there, even last year. We're lucky that's not thrown in to shake things up as well. But yeah, it's a bugger of a corner. It's devilishly simple. It
certainly is. It looks simple, but it can be deceptive, because it does suck you in. You want to get on the power and you want to use all that exit curb, but if you judge it the wrong way, it can very much be good night. Well, you were the last of the points, or the people with points on the board in the point standings. You're 26th overall, 60 points. You're not going to add to that tally in this particular race. I'm not sure if you're going to go and participate in the second one or not, but we'll see what happens.
Definitely plan on doing that second race. I'm enjoying being out there. I'm just not enjoying singing it off, but I'm learning things and picking up stuff. So yeah, I'll help you out for the next race, and then be back there for race 2, and hopefully don't join you again so quickly, or if at all, for the point of view of my racing.
All right, good to hear. Well, what I might appreciate if you could do for me is let's have a look and see if the safety car is actually scheduled to come in this lap, because that's the one thing I don't have access to.
I'll see what I can find out. I would believe, just based on the timing, that it should be in pretty soon. I imagine it was a bigger accident this time than it was the first safety car incident, so it would potentially take longer. I was going to say, I did actually notice that Brendan Rossi came into the pits that lap. I'm not sure what for, because I don't think he was involved in any really aggressive racing to need to repair damage, and unless it wouldn't be a case of underfueling, because you wouldn't expect this level of safety cars. So I'm not sure why he came in. He did come in, so he's now sitting second last ahead of his teammate Ricky.
Yeah, he is. You're absolutely right. Here he is on screen at the moment, just working his way through the technical section at the northeastern end of the course. He's at turn 8 and turn 9 now. And if we go back, he'll get onto the back of the pack. If it's going green this time around, he'll get back on the back of the pack quite comfortably. Ricky Slick's got
safety car's just pulled in, so we are going green this lap.
All right. Can JP Coeurrier get the restart right this time around? He did it brilliantly last time around. Is Boat going to be awake to it? Is Josh Ben going to have a stab if they get the thing? Here he goes. JP's gone. He nailed that restart absolutely perfectly again. Great job. Foley's under attack from Josh Ben here. And down the inside, storming comes Billy Dougal-Salonga, but he's gone deep under brakes. And it's calamity back. There's people off the road, but somehow they managed to pop all out the other side. There's no yellow flag. Billy Dougal-Salonga, that was highly ambitious. And he's gone from what was 4th place, he's all the way back to 11th.
Yeah, that was a messy restart. I was watching that on board from Josh's point of view, and what happened was, I don't know, I think what happened was Brendan Foley was waiting for the control or something to accelerate because he didn't go. You're right, JP nailed that, but Brendan Foley didn't go anywhere at all, so it was Josh who was giving him just gentle bumps down the straight. Come on, we're going to get going somewhere, and that's what led to all that. Was JP went, Brenton didn't, and everyone bottled up behind him, and that's what caused all that. I think there's damage to Josh's car. He was off the inside of turn 3 as well. So
yeah, I was about to say something's happened to Josh Ben as well, because he was, I think, might have been, he's 12th at the moment. He was an innocent victim in all of that. He was forced to go wide because BDS went storming down the inside, so took the racing line away from him and had to go across the grass and make sure, as we said, and we listened in on the briefing, making sure that he could come back on in a safe manner, and also in a manner that he didn't end up shortcutting the track to the point where he went a lap down, as per how the timing loops work at this circuit. But he's now down in 12th place. His race is ruined.
It is.
It was sad to see because he's been so quick. He was top the practice time sheets and he was right up there. He was going to take that fight up to those leading guys if he could get his head down and get his rhythm going. And if he can get back into the top 10, at least he'll grab a handful of points here. He's got Brendan Ross ahead and might make light work of him. Yep, down into turn 3. No, not quite. No. Good hold from Brendan Ross there as well. So Ross will throw a challenge down to Josh Ben. He won't let him have it easy, although Ross is way out in the weeds and lit it up on the exit of turn 4 as well. Ben's on the dirty side of the road here. Rossi has the line. And this is where we saw potentially Foley and Devonish come to blows as well, in an incident where we believe that Devonish may have got a little bit of a love tap, but we'll have to wait and see after the race. But Josh Ben applying the pressure, maximum pressure here on the back of Brendan Ross. A pair of VF Commodores duking it out. Now through turn 9. Rossi's wide. Josh Ben has the better line here. Good drive. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle as well. Puts probably any chance of having a stab here down into turn 10. If he can get a nice run out of here. Doesn't use as much curb as Rossi. In actual fact, a later apex as well. And the slipstream not as powerful at this circuit as such circuits like Phillip Island, and they've both locked up. They've both gone deep at turn 11. So one did it, and then the other one followed. And Josh Ben just struggling to put that power down out of turn 12 as well, a little bit loose. So maybe just trying to overdriving the car a little bit here. Looking a bit further up the field. Billy Dougal-Salonga, holding down 10th place, is on the back of Brownie. Brownie's been involved in a couple of those hits, as we like to call them, from the turn 2. And BDS now looking up the inside here. A pair of iRacing guys going at it. And stays the way they were for the moment. Oh, and they're both out. Brownie's out in the marbles. BDS is trying to put the power down. Oh, and off goes the circuit, goes Brownie. Probably just got his braking all wrong for turn 7. Donuts on the outside of the circuit, rejoins 12th, and still hasn't made it back onto the circuit. Yeah, he just got his braking all wrong, and very, very easy, or a gift of position to BDS in the end. Yeah,
there's a couple of guys that got well out of that actually. In all that earlier on as well, Josh Ben did actually eventually get past Rossi, so he got past. They both got past Brownie as well. But yeah, that corner's it's a bit of a pain of a corner because he comes from this nice fast flowing section of turn 5. And there's little sort of very high speed kink back to the right for turn 6. Then you're going to get all on the brakes again. And if you go too fast over that kink, the weight transfer to then put it on brakes it's basically trying to orbit the weight around the wheels of your car. And the car doesn't like it when you're trying to orbit the weight around it. So it starts to spin out and tyres start to lock and all that sort of stuff. So that same sort of things happen to Brownie. And it's probably just the heat of the moment also it's got to him. Salong was right in his back bumper. And that puts the pressure on him. And that's probably also what's contributed to him sending it wide there.
Yeah, a little bit of a glitch there in the broadcast. Apologies for that. Josh Ben's next target's going to be Billy Dougal-Salonga. There's just a little bit of, all these guys, 9th, 10th and 11th, just a little bit ragged at the moment. So they just need to settle down for the remaining 8 laps, as we're on lap 13 at the moment. Meanwhile, Coeurrier's really stormed away at the head of the field. Foley's dropped right back behind Turmo here as well, as a result of the carnage on the restart at turn number 1 and 2. And in the end, Turmo just sidesteps him and says, "You're not in my fight, mate. I'll let you go." And up to 6th place goes Foley. Next target for him is Devenish. Devenish, having recovered from going off the road at turn number 6 and 7, in what we said on the broadcast, we believe may have got a little tap from Foley, but we couldn't see it from the angle that we were looking at. But the car very, very violently on the change of direction, on the sweeper through the right-hander, or the left-hander when he was getting ready for the right, very abruptly turned to the left. He did a good job to keep it out of the wall. He's recovered up to 5th place, right on the rear bumper of the FGX Falcon of Aldo Benedetti here. And this is some really, really hard racing between these two. Hard but fair. Commodore versus Falcon. Italian versus Australian. And Devenish really got a point to prove after he was looking very, very good for a podium position. Past the opportunity down here into turn 7. Not quite close enough to make it happen. Benedetti's awake to it. And a little bit further up the field, Hathaway right on the back of Phil Boak as well. 2.5 separating those two guys. Hathaway looking to get back on the podium since his win at Adelaide. So been a little while since he's visited the rostrum this season as Mitchell Hathaway, but he's in 3rd place at the moment, looking pretty good. But this is really where the battle's at. Devenish has got pace, but so too's Benedetti. So these guys are really going to duke it out over the remaining 6 laps. This time, at the end of this one, we'll have 6 remaining. Down the inside, that's an ambitious move. Elbows out. We did say there'd be elbows out during this race. Devenish had a very, very opportunistic move down there into turn 11, but in the end, wasn't quite far enough alongside to make it stick through 12. And he'll have another go at some point this time around. Meanwhile, let's have a bit of a look and see if Hathaway's closing in on Boak. No, the gaps is just sort of, at the moment, it's stabilised a little bit. Last time around, in actual fact, Boak was 0.2 of a second quicker. So maybe it looks like Hathaway's quicker in one sector. In actual fact, he's quicker slightly in the last sector, but Boak's got a 0.2 on him in the middle sector, so in the first sector. This time around, they pretty much match each other in the first sector, so it just about stays where it is. We've got a local yellow flag here in the second sector of the circuit, but it's been cleared now.
That's for Glenn Miles. He's pulled off the side. I'm not sure if he's having car issues or if he's just pulled off. He is seemingly still moving. I think he's waiting for the rest of the field to come through. Yep, he is. I believe that was just his way of making sure he wasn't interfering in anyone's race. Glenn was fairly confidently down the back, I think is a fairly polite way to put it. We were going to have a good little battle, hopefully as the race progressed, but yeah, Glenn just making sure that he's not getting into anyone else's fight.
No, that's right. And we did mention that we had a bit of a listen in on the driver's briefing in between the break, between qualifying and the warm-up and the race, just to hear what Brenton Foley had to say when he did conduct that driver's briefing. And he did mention about making sure you got out of people's way and got off the racing line, because we did see that happen a little bit at the last round at Barbagallo. Brendan Ross has retired from this race as well in the last couple of laps as well. So he was second overall in a point standing, so he's going to cough up more points to Boak at the moment, who's in second place overall. So a good haul of points for Boak coming out of this race. For sprint race format, it's 150 points for them. Who we got going across the grass there? I just saw it in the front of shot. Was that Coeurrier going across the grass? No, it wasn't. I saw a big. It was a big antenna. I think it might have been 12th place man Ricky Slick, actually.
I was just speaking of some guys from the back of the pack and just went on it. Josh Ben temporarily got inside the top 10. He is still in the top 10 now. He's 10th, but he's currently locked in a big battle
with Dwayne Davies.
Himself, Dwayne Davies in the JPS D2 Racing Falcon, and Douglas Salonga, who's just got a gap on those two just in the last couple of corners because the battling is quite fierce behind him. But these guys all fighting, they're all going to be in the top 10, but they're all fighting to be the toppest in the top 10 amongst themselves. And yeah, it looks like he might have just scored a gap for the moment, but yeah, D2 is still going to try and make a move at some point soon.
Oh, D2 very, very sideways off of turn 10. He lit it up, and nicely saved in the back of shot there was D2. They're all, as we said before, these guys are really driving hard. They're just driving on the ragged edge. It's not clean, but it's flamboyant at best to watch. And Josh Ben was actually ahead of Billy Dougal-Salonga at that as well. Now, they've all moved up a place, have they? Has someone gone down? Yeah, Steve Burko's gone down the order as well. So, Billy Dougal-Salonga 8th, Ben 9th, and D2's just the last man inside the top 10. Now, Benedetti and Devonish are still going at it for 4th and 5th. Let's rejoin this battle. These guys are also driving very, very hard. They're just ahead of Foley. Now, Foley, the last time around, did gain on Devonish and Benedetti. He did a 25.5, did Foley. These guys did 26.2 and a 26.4 respectively. So, Foley's got the better part of 3.5 laps to cut into the 3-second gap and join this fight. It might be a little bit of an ask, especially with these guys driving as hard as they are and locked in a battle. Oh, and Foley's gone wide off of turn 10 there as well. We just saw in the back a shot that he got all out of shape. So if he was going to challenge these guys, he's not going to do it now. Big lock up for the Falcon of Benedetti down into turn 11. Devonish wasn't quite close enough to capitalise. But again, 3 laps to go for these guys. The closest battle on the track, probably the most entertaining battle on the track for the moment. Literally glued nose to tail. And Steve Burko's had a moment there just opposite the old pits there between turns 3 and 4. Not sure what's going on there, but he's sliding back through the field. Not a good race so far for the man who pilots the Top Gear Racing Starbucks Falcon.
No, that's not good at all. He's possibly come a little wide. He is now underway again, but if possibly also pulling. He was the next guy to be lapped by the field after Glenn Miles, possibly pulling over that as well.
Yep.
I'm also going to comment on the pace of Benedetti. This is the equivalent, I suppose, of having someone like Roger Penske flying from the States and jump behind the wheel of one of the JJR.
Oh, he's gone wide. Sorry to cut you off there. He's gone wide. He made a mistake going down there into turn number 9. Devonish pounced. Job done. Will Devonish is 4th. At the end of the day, the pressure pays off. Benedetti makes a mistake and gives 4th place to Will Devonish. Now, is that going to put Benedetti back into the clutches of Foley? Yes, it is. 1.3 seconds of difference here. Might be a little bit of an effort to make it up if Benedetti can get his rhythm back and hold him off for another 2 laps. But we'll keep an eye on that with interest.
Ooh, big twitch for Foley just in the background. He very nearly crossed it up right where the pit entry mark was. He was very lucky not to spin that.
Yeah, Foley driving very, very aggressively. That's his style, very flamboyant style. Benedetti that time around at 28.5, Foley 25.7, Devonish 25.1. So obviously the gap that was there between 4th and 5th back to 6th has very much evaporated. 1.5 seconds is the margin. And Benedetti's going to have to get his head down for the next 2 laps. And he should be able to fend off the Foley challenge quite quickly. Foley's had his own challenges this particular race as well. Was running with the Wi-Fi hotspot. Phone's decided to crack the shits, and he's gone back to the internet connection. He's had a history of internet dramas as Brenton Foley, and he basically said to me before the broadcast that if his internet died again and he ended up not finishing the first race tonight, he could pretty much kiss his championship hopes goodbye, because at the moment he's got 972 points to his teammates 1299, so he's 327 behind. And if he coughs up a fistful of points to his teammate, who right now is in P2 by DNFing, then it's pretty much going to be game over. It's going to be very, very hard for him to fight back from that position. But for the moment, as he goes a little bit deep there at turn 11, for the moment, he's going to set to pick up the points on offer for 6th place. We've commenced the last lap. It's all settled down a bit for the moment. The only real battle left on track is Dougal-Salonga and Josh Ben for 8th and 9th. In actual fact, Josh Ben has dropped right off the back of BDS, so he's had a bit of a moment somewhere there, so that probably settles that battle. But we're going to pick up our race leader down here at turn number 7. So he started on the pole. He got a very, very good launch. Devonish, who was alongside, got just as good a launch, and he held position into turn number 1 and 2 quite comfortably. He's managed both the restarts to perfection. In actual fact, after the first restart, he was driving away from the field. He had it out to 5 seconds before the safety car nullified it again. He's been driving very, very consistently. He showed that he had the pace at Barbagallo in the long distance format of the race, so he's got a long distance victory to his name in the feature events, and now he's going to get a sprint race win to his name. He's going to pick up his second race win of the season and his second race win in a row. 150 championship points for JP Coeurrier. JP Simshed, Jinx Shifters, you little beauty, job done. Eventually, after a half an hour of racing, we finally got there and we have ourselves a winner.
We do. That was a great run by JP, just to put up on qualifying. The best bit was he didn't just qualify first. He qualified first and really made a mark. He was half a second or something near that up on the next place driver. But no, he did a great job in qualifying, and this is his second time in a supercar in what is it, 2 nights. He's just continuing to shine at this place. Great speed both times in the car. But yeah, to come out with a win, and pretty confident win in the end there. Quite healthily gapped off of Phil Boak. It's at the moment he can do no wrong, and yeah, great drive by JP Coeurrier.
Definitely. Second place man's Phil Boak across the line, extends his championship points advantage over the guys behind. Mitchell Hathaway takes third place, his second visit to the rostrum this season. His other visit being the race victory at the opening round in Adelaide. Will Devonish, great recovery drive from Will Devonish. He'll be disappointed with the 4th place finish and what happened. He's had to come all the way from the back after that second safety car, but he's really driven hard and gets himself back up to 4th. Benedetti finished 5th in the end ahead of Foley. Termo's doing his backwards thing and having a bit of a muck about with Steve Burko here. I don't know what that's all about. Josh Ben ends up with the 8th place finish after all of that, ahead of Dwayne Davies, and Billy Dougal Salonga rounds out the top 10. They're already doing celebratory burnouts. But and the safety car's having a moment here at the entrance to the pit lane. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe the track needs a little bit of reworking.
It is. I didn't want to bring attention to that. I did say that during the race. I'm just like, yeah, we'll focus on what's the exciting part of the action. But yeah, I believe he has got lost.
Yeah, he has got lost. We had seen that the safety car did rub the wall on the way into the pit lane when the race restarted at one point, but take nothing away from JP Coeurrier. He's had a very, very good little patch of form and backs up his race win from Barbagallo with another race win, and I dare say he's probably striking the right little bit of form now. I've likened it to the same way that I said about Josh Ben at the beginning of the broadcast. So Josh Ben's just sort of found his way and found his rhythm, and he started to get better and better and better. He just needed to put it all together. Same thing with JP Coeurrier. He just needed to put his pace and put everything all together, and now he's done it in back-to-back races. So good to see. Now, he's not here in the broadcast box at the moment, but we will go to our 3rd place man, Mitchell Hathaway. And Mitchell, you a solid result. Good to see you back on the rostrum after the last visit, which was the very first race win in Adelaide. You've had a good result today, but also on the season, apart from your 2 DNFs, you've not finished any lower than 7, so you continue to rack up those points. And he's not talking to me. And he's back. You back with me, Mitchell? No, he's got a little bit of an issue there, I think. All right, let's come back to him. Let's go to our 2nd place man, Phil Boak. Phil, talk us through it. You started a bit further back than you would have liked. You started back in 12th place, but by the time the first safety car came out, you were already in 9th, and now you're on the 2nd step of the podium.
Yeah, no, I was pretty bummed after qualifying. Just copped that curb and got a double bounce and see you later, and then I was half a turn down, so it was a pretty wild second lap, just trying to get somewhere on the grid. But race was good. I got a decent start. I got to 9th, like you said. I got another one, and Will went off, which gave me another one for the next safety car. And then when the safety car went in, we just went into turn 1. Everyone just spread out, and I just went straight through the middle. I thought, thank you very much. Got the 3rd, and yeah.
Eventually became 2nd.
Yeah, and Foley had an issue. went off, and car was horrible in full tank. So I played around with the bars, and then finally got it right. And I started to bring in JP, but he had good pace, so I was never going to get to him with the laps left. But no, it was good. It's good fun.
Good to see. And talk us through what exactly was your drama with qualifying. You did leave it late. Some of you guys have a bit of a history of leaving your qualifying runs quite late in the piece, and you were one of the last guys to go out. And what contributed to that 12th place? Because, as we said, it's very, very strange to see you back that far. Was it just a combination? The setup wasn't right?
No, the car's been beautiful. Both Foley and I have been getting in the 22, so the car's quite good qualifying wise. No, I just went to turn one. I turned in the touch early, and then I didn't carry enough momentum over the curb and hit it again. I got a second bounce, and it just spammed me and put me in the wall, and it bent the steering. Like I said, the steering was about almost half a turn down to the right, so it was it was just recovering and try and get what I could.
Well, you've recovered quite well. You've got another good fistful of championship points for your second place. You extend your lead with the first of the sprint races tonight, and looking forward to see what you can do in qualifying for the second race tonight.
Thanks, mate. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. I'll go back to the third place man, Mitchell Hathaway now. Mitchell, have you got me, or are you still having some technical gremlins there? No, looks like he's still having some technical gremlins. Let's go to our first place man, JP. Well, you've done it twice now, mate. So nice the first time. You've done it twice. You've now got a sprint race victory to your name, and you're hitting a nice little purple patch of form here.
Yeah, look, great race tonight, and really happy with with getting pole position. I knew I needed to get a good start off the line and getting to turn one first, because I was expecting to be carnage in there. I don't know whether that was the case. Well, I think it was, because we went to safety car pretty much straight away. But once I had the opportunity, I figured I'd just get away as quick as I can, get a bit of a buffer, and then I could ease off the pace a bit.
Yeah, well, we did see when the carnage did happen at turn 1 and 2, and it did happen on both occasions that the safety car came out. You controlled those restarts to absolute perfection. You were able to jump away at precisely the right moment, never gave the guys behind an opportunity to have a sniff at you into turn 1 on the restarts, and a very, very crucial part of any racing in any category in the world is being able to control the restarts, and that's as good as it gets. You did a fantastic job controlling those restarts, and probably set you up to give you that buffer that you needed just to control and run your own pace at the front.
It certainly did. I was actually a little bit surprised both times that that the guys didn't sort of stay with me. I thought that maybe I did something wrong the first time, having never experienced a safety car in AMS yet. But once I got away on that second restart, I just figured I'd build as big a buffer as I could, and then start to ease off as the tyres started to wear.
Well, at the end of the day, whatever you've done and whatever little magic beans you've found, you've, as I said before, you've got a little bit of a purple patch going here, 2 race wins, and 2 very, very good races at the end of it all, and you've got one more tonight. So 3 from 3, or 3 races from, or 3 wins from 3 consecutive races, certainly a possibility. There's some fast guys behind you, but let's see what you can do in race 2, mate.
I'll give it as they say, a red hot go, and we'll see how we end up.
Well, we'll leave that one with you to see how we go. I think I may have been able to solve Mitchell Hathaway's problems for him. Mitchell, you with me this time?
Yeah, finally. Thank you.
All right. I think I just figured out what had happened as soon as you said a little message there. I think I could see what was going on. I'll repeat my questions from earlier on. You're the third place man. Your first visit to the rostrum since your win in Adelaide. You've, apart from the 2 races that you haven't finished, you finished no lower than 7th. So you continue to rack up those points, even though you're sitting down in 6th place on the standings. Good little haul of points by your third place finish tonight. How did you see your race panning out?
Well, qualifying was a bit of a disappointment, to be honest. I tried to drive the car just a bit too hard. Obviously, it's a bit of a difficult track and still getting up to speed with things. So, I just tried to weave my way through the pack there. Obviously, we had safety cars for a while. but yeah, just kept out of trouble in after the second safety car restart and picked up a couple of spots. And from then on, it was just about keeping good exit speed. I'm really more fast into the corners and like sacrifice my exit speed. So just focusing on getting a clean exit out of the corners, and it paid off for me. So happy with the points.
Yep, certainly happy with the points. And we did notice that your teammate out-qualified you. You were down sort of towards the back end of the top 10 after qualifying was all said and done. Similar question to what I asked Phil. What was it a combination of? Bad setup, just not happy with the car, couldn't quite put it together over one lap? What do you put your bad qualifying down to?
Probably just a bit of setup. I've never really felt comfortable in this car around Winton, to be honest. So I surprised myself to get on the podium, to be honest. But yeah, just don't really feel comfortable in the car. But let's see what we can do for the second one.
Well, we'll certainly see what you can do for the second one. All right, that's your top three. I'm going to throw a little curveball here. We normally don't do these, but I'm going to throw a question here at Mr. Josh Ben, because Josh, you were one of the ones I was watching out of the practice session. You topped the practice timesheets. You were right up there. Your third place qualifying was very, very good. And then you ended up on the second safety car. I think you probably had to take some avoiding action. You ended up off the road and a bit further back in the pack.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, on the second restart, I came. Mate, I'm gutted. Obviously, coming into turn one. I was just on the standard brake marker, which I felt pretty comfortable with anyway. So I wasn't gonna push it out wide into turn one, and unfortunately, a couple of guys behind me did tag me. Which pushed me off the road, and it did damage my rear aero just a little bit. You could definitely feel it coming into the latter stages of that race. And the car was handling beautiful before that, but unfortunately, it is a racing incident. I can't blame it on anyone in particular. I feel some people were wanting to do the dive up the inside. It's just unfortunate, mate. I'm gutted, but we'll be back for race 2. See if we can improve on the times and push the PBF Holden further up the line.
Well, you managed to get it out there in the end. You're still coming to grips with the team name, but you're coming to grips with the circuit quite quickly. You've obviously been here before in real life, so the circuit knowledge is certainly there for you. Let's see what you can do in race 2. Hopefully it goes a bit more your way and you can take the fight to the guys up front who are on the podium for the first one.
No worries. Cheers.
All right, guys, run along. Let's get this qualifying session underway in a couple of minutes' time. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with race number 2 and qualifying number 2 in just a few moments. Welcome back, everybody. We are getting ourselves set for qualifying 2 for the second 20-lap sprint race here at Winton Motor Raceway for the AMS Oz Super 2 season of 2019. Race 9 will be decided probably in about half an hour from now, but between now and then we've got the qualifying session to determine the grid for race 9. So good to see, again, we're getting a decent mixture of drivers visiting the podium. So chalking up yet another podium win or another podium visit was Phil Boak. So he's been on the podium. He actually, where is he here? We're just looking through our list. So his 4th second place finish of the season. So second in Adelaide, second at the first round at Albert Park, second at Barbagallo, and now second at Winton. And he's got 2 wins to his name as well from the second race at Symmons Plains and the only race that took place at Phillip Island. And his worst result's actually 14th, which was the second race at Albert Park. All right, drivers are on the move. Aldo Benedetti out first, followed by Termo. We're just watching here from turns 1 and 2. They're the first couple of drivers that have decided to take to the circuit. Let's see if we can pick them up on the broadcast. Actually, no, it's not Aldo Benedetti that's out first. It's Mike Coulston. So Mike Coulston, or Mike Saudi Camel, has decided, you know what, I've had enough of seeing that other car go round in the hands of somebody else. I want a piece of it too. Rumour was that he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, but it looks like he's been able to find some time in his busy schedule to jump in. And in actual fact, that makes 20 runners for this particular race, so good to see. I'm not sure how much practice he's done, but it will be interesting to see what sort of lap times he can turn in this session. He's now on the run down to turn number 10, so he'll be the first driver that will start his first flying lap in this 15-minute session. Again, you've only got 2 flying laps in order to do your best time, and you can go out at any point in time that you so desire. And most drivers tend to just pick an opportunity where they feel they're comfortable to go. Some drivers like to go early, get it over and done with while the track's a bit quieter. Some drivers elect to wait until all the rubber's gone down to see what they can do. Mike Coulston's out first and is on the clock now. All right, how aggressive does he attack turn 1 and 2? Actually very respectful of the curbs. A couple of guys take a little bit more curb than that. Over the rise, past the old commentary box, down into turn 3 and past the old pits. Tucking the car in nicely, just avoiding all the curbs on this outlap so far. In actual fact, not using much of the exit curbs either. So very, very respectful lap to start with. Now through the left-hander at turn 5, now 6, getting a little bit of air under the right-hand side tyres there. And sector time was a 30.5 there, so not the quickest sector time. Probably just a little bit of a warm-up lap and just easing his way into it. Now the right-hander through turn 9. Just nicely pick up the power. You don't want to pick up the power too early. We saw a couple of drivers just squeezing the throttle a little bit too early and then just getting a little bit taily off the exit of turn 9. A little bit of curb through 10. That's not too bad. A minute 2 through the second sector split. So setting up for a mid to probably about a 27 or 28, I think, at this juncture. Through the final corner he goes, so it's actually going to be a little bit closer to probably about a 28, I'd say now, just by judging on it. Yeah, it's a 28.1. So initial flying lap is a 28.1, and we're starting to get a little bit of servo lag here just as well as things go on. And we pick Coulston up again from the helicam. Bit more of a nice shot, a bit wide of the apex there at turn number 3. Termo now goes to the top, posts a 27.4. Times and definitely not as quick as they were to begin with. Now we start getting a bit more serious. Dwayne Davies jumps up to the top with a 25.4. So now we're starting to get a little bit more serious. And Rody's just going to get himself off the circuit here. Does the right thing. Gives track position to the Scuderia Alitalia number 66. Gary Neville sets a time. Goes into what was 5th place, immediately supplanted by Cracker. And stay with Coulston, who's currently 4th. And he's pretty much matching his time up until that point, and that throws his lap away. So no more improvements for Mike Coulston. What about Turmo? What's Turmo got in store here? Down to turn 10. Up 2 seconds on the PB, so took it a little bit easy that first lap. In actual fact, not very far away from Dwayne Davies' current provisional pole time. So looking set is Turmo to jump well and truly into the 25s, into the low 25s in the Nissan. To the line now, and how did he go off the last turn? Just lost a little bit more time in that last sector, but it's a 25.459 for Turmo after his 2 laps are over. Current provisional pole sitter Dwayne Davies to the line now, does not improve. Had a bit of a scruffy lap, so that's him done. Now, who's the next man that are out at the moment? I'm going to try and pick up Josh Ben because he had a very, very good first sector. In actual fact, there was another driver had just as good a first sector, and it was Brenton Foley. And here he is. He's a little bit ahead of Josh Ben on the road. This is the man who's looking set to go to the top of the timesheets at the moment, and he will quite comfortably. 24 dead for Brenton Foley. Now, where is Josh Ben? Coming out of 10 down to 11. Was one of the men to watch out of practice. He just hasn't been able to put it together, and unfortunate victim in that second safety car restart. He was on the outside on the racing line and had to take the evasive action and slots up into P2. 4.3 tenths down on Foley's time. Now, how's Foley faring? He's a 1/10.5 off his current provisional pole time through the first sector of his second flying lap. Still a number of drivers sitting up in the pits. Only half the field registering times at the moment, or have registered a time. Now out of turn 9. Kicks up a little bit of dust, just trying to use as much of that road as he possibly can to maximise the speed on exit. Clawed back a little bit of time in that sector, but not an improvement just yet on his own PB, and therefore on his own provisional time. Oh, took a bit of curb there at turn 11, and just had to wait for the right-hand side wheels of the car to hit the deck before he could get the power back on, and had a little bit of a moment on the exit of turn 12 as well, and no improvement. So that little bit of air under the wheels probably cost him a bit here. Josh Ben's found some time. Josh Ben's found a little bit of time. He's not that far off Foley's time, but he's gone deep at turn number 11. He's done that a couple of times. Is there a penalty to pay for that? A little bit of a puff of smoke from the inside right tyres as well. Into turn 12. What can he do? Improves, but stays provisionally second. So he was on for a good lap there, but just those last couple of corners, again, just overdrove the car just a little bit. This will be the next man to start his first flying laps, is Will Devonish. Great recovery drive from this man. Was right up there in the hunt. Had a little bit of a moment down at turn number 6, where he ended up off the road, restarted 17th after the safety car, and drove all the way back to 4th place with the help of the second safety car as well. Bit wide of the apex at turn 3. A couple of drivers going a little bit deep there. It looks quite nice and settled through the first few corners here, and not far off the provisional pole time. Currently tracking for P3 around where Steve Burko is at the moment. Burko's had a fairly good lap as well. In actual fact, I think that's probably one of his best laps for the race weekend, the 24.2 for Steve Burko. Lit it up quite early there, Devonish. Didn't use all the road on exit. Again, just might be down to the style he likes to drive. Has just dropped away a little bit more in terms of time to Foley. Now puts him provisionally 4th ahead of Billy Dougal-Salonga, who set his first flying lap. Moves him up into provisionally P4. And who else have we still got to set times? We've got no time from Benedetti, Ross, Miles, Hathaway, Boak, Slick, Coeurrier. Devonish will now register his first time. Goes second. Found some time in that final sector. Found 2.5 tenths, or nearly 2.5 tenths in that final sector. goes ahead of Josh Ben. Provision on the front row, hangs it out on the exit of turn 2. Really driving it hard now. Kicks up a bit of dust off the exit of 3. There's no exit curb there. There's exit curb here at 4. Let's have a look at his sector split time. Was it out in the marbles too? That's cost him some time. Not a great deal, but really, look at the car squirming. And he's offline as well. So this lap not going according to plan, but he's pressing on here. Wide of a couple of apexes. Getting his outside tyres in the marbles a few times. Just trying anything and everything to see if he can find those couple of tenths that he needs. Used all the road on X at that time. Did what Foley did and kicked up a bit of dust off the grass as well. And no, I think this lap is probably going to be a throwaway. So he's probably going to stay in P2. I don't believe he'll improve from here. We've got Brendan Ross out for his first flying laps as well. He's on his out lap at the moment. So too Ricky Slick. So too Mitchell Hathaway. And JP Coeurrier is also out as well. Now we've just lost somebody temporarily from the server as well. Just looking to see who it is. I think that looks like it's Cam Rutledge. So Cam Rutledge has had some issues again. So sadly for him, he is not partaking in qualifying again. Here's your winner from race number 1 tonight. Just through the top end of the circuit at the moment. Let's see if we can... Oh, someone's a spinner there. Who was... that is gone past. That is Ricky Slick having a little bit of a moment there as well. Now, Phil Boak's on the track as well at the moment on his out laps. Let's see if we can pick up... Brennan Ross is the man I want to pick up next because he is... Here he is on his first flying lap. Actually, nicely handled through turn 1 and 2. Plenty of curb. Car nicely settled. Tucks it in nicely on the entrance to 3. Little lock-up, though, has cost him. Little lock-up has cost him there at turn 4 and puts him out wide in the weeds. And had to wait to get the power down. A little bit of a lock-up as well, swinging through the left-hander into 5. And ends up a second down. So he was looking quite good there for those first couple of corners, but just all came undone at turn 4. So this is pretty much going to be a banker lap for him to put him somewhere on the timesheets. We've seen times from the top 12 cars out of the 18 that are in the server. We've lost another driver. Who have we lost temporarily? We've lost Mike Coulston as well. So Coulston and Rutledge. Well, Coulston had set a time, but has dropped out of the server for the moment. The 444 of Brendan Ross is now 1.7 seconds down at the second sector split. So this lap time is going to place him 9th provisionally on the road as it stands. And he'll have another go. Again, drivers continuing to overdrive that second to last corner and going as deep under brakes as they dare. Some trying to go too far. And as we suspected, Brendan Ross pops up into 9th provisionally. And now needs to really find some time. A bit tidier that time through 1 and 2, not as much curb. That's a nice line through turn 3. The helicopter cam giving us a really good shot here. Did the same thing again. Locked up into turn 4. Not as bad this time. He was able to get back on the power a lot earlier. Didn't go out into the weeds on the left-hand side of the circuit. So the improvement on his PB, but still 8 tenths down on the provisional pole sitter's time of Foley. Now noticing Phil Boak's actually setting some quick sectors as well. So let's join where Phil Boak is. The last couple of corners, he looked really good through sector 1, really good through sector 2. Purple sector 1 he set. A fairly quick sector 2, a 30 dead. And he goes to the line and jumps to the top. Provisionally now PBF 1-2. With a minute and a half to go. Where's JP Coeurrier in all this? He's currently 6th. Let's see if we can pick up our 6th place man. How's he going at the moment? He wasn't that quick in sector 1. He was actually 2 tenths off the pole time, but he's found some time in his PB and he's within a whisker of Boak's time at the moment. So he'll be set to jump onto the second place grid spot if he can keep this together. Can he find any more time and outdo the man in the PBF 015? Let's see. to the line. He needs a high 23. Not enough. Not enough for JP Coeurrier to take pole position. He actually gets surpassed. Aldo Benedetti comes from nowhere. Great lap from Benedetti in the Scuderia Alitalia Falcon on his first flying lap. So immediately as Coeurrier goes on the front row, surpassed by the Falcon driver, pushes Coeurrier onto the second row of the grid with Foley, and then Devonish and Josh Ben. Getting out of the way there was JP Coeurrier. Let's have a look at Benedetti's time. An improvement on his own time, and again, he's within a whisker now of the pole time set by Phil Boak. Is there a last sting in the tail of this qualifying session? Are the top two going to swap positions between the inside and the outside? Who else is on the track at the moment? Glenn Miles has not set a time, so he's going to set to start from the rear of grid. Everybody else has set a time. What's the sector split like? There's nothing in it. Absolutely nothing in it for pole position here in this second race. Benedetti's got a fraction of a margin. He's probably got about a foot if you wanted to calculate it in terms of distance. He's got 8/100ths of a second at second sector split and really wrung the neck of the car through the final two corners as well. This looks like it's going to rocket into pole position, and it does. It puts him on pole by a 1/10.5. Great job. Another pole sitter in this race, and he's happy and he celebrates. What a great job. He knows he can't be beaten. And what a fantastic last minute pole position achieved by Aldo Benedetti, who we have already alluded to, we believe, is one Mr. Lewis Wedding, but we will find that out, I'm sure, if he finishes on the rostrum at the end of this particular race coming up in just a few moments. So a great start for Benedetti. Had a good race one, and now finds himself on the pole for race number 2. Well, a good little stoush there for pole position in qualifying. JP Coeurrier couldn't quite mimic his performance from qualifying 1 and race 1, but still in a strong position to start from third place, and with the pace he's got, anything's possible. A couple of drivers that were out of position in that last qualifying session for race 1 tonight. Phil Boak finds himself on the front row of the grid, starting out of P2, so he'll be much happier with that. Foley probably be a bit philosophical. He's starting out of P4. And a couple of other drivers probably would like to be a bit further up the field than what they are. So for the moment, we will take, again, a short break in between the qualifying and the race session. And while the 10-minute warm-up takes place, we'll be back in a few moments' time. Welcome back, everyone. This is the 6th round of the AMS Oz Super 2 season from Winton Motor Raceway, races 8 and 9 of the race season. Plenty of racing still to go. We've got 21 races in total, so we're over the 1/4 distance mark. We chalked that up last time out at Perth's Barbagallo Raceway. Now into the second third of the season, which will take us through sprint races at Winton, sprint races at Hidden Valley, a feature race at Townsville, and then a pair of sprint races at Queensland Raceway will be the middle sector of this particular season. And then the final sector, we end up with Calder Park with a pair of sprint races, Pukekohe, Bathurst, Sydney Motorsport Park, Sandown, and Oran Park to finish out. So if you haven't seen the race calendar, there it is. The only exception on that calendar that you'll probably be aware of is the October 17th date there for Mount Panorama. That's the endurance race, so a very special event there, which will take place the week after the Bathurst 1000 has been held. And some nice circuits on the calendar there. Looking forward to see what gets dished up when we get to Calder Park Raceway. Some sprint racing, and we've been to Calder Park before in the real world for the supercars, but haven't done it in the land of AMS Oz just yet. So really looking forward to see what happens there. Meanwhile, while we are just waiting for the warm-up session to finish up, we're just running through and seeing what sort of impact the points finishes have made on the point stand, or the race finishes have made on the point standings from race 1 tonight. So just punching those into the system right now to see what comes out. At the moment, no surprises. It's Phil Boak still sitting at the top of the standings, and he's now on 1,437 points, and quite a considerable margin ahead of Brennan Ross. Now Brennan Ross with a DNF, in actual fact, drops him out of second place. Second place goes to Brenton Foley now, following his 6th place finish, and a DNF for Ross, so that moves him up in terms of the points there. As we continue to punch in some of these numbers here, we've just got 3 more drivers to go as the points are updated. I'm actually updating this in real time, so we can give you the exact figures as to who is where, but we're just doing the top 10, as that seems to be just about who we need for the moment. And now that we've got all that in order, we can actually see that definitely Phil Boak still leads from Brenton Foley. JP Coeurrier, by virtue of having that second win, now moves on to 636 points, actually moves up to 11th place overall on the standings. So he was 12th coming into the night. He's now moved up ahead of Billy Dougal-Salonga into 11th place. Still a little bit behind Dwayne Davies. So Dwayne Davies on 666, or the Devil's number as we like to call it. So he's only 30 points adrift there, Coeurrier, of leapfrogging into what is currently 10th place. And then just ahead of the 10th place man is of Dwayne Davies is Steve Burko, and Steve Burko did have a points finish. We just haven't added his points on just yet. So JP Coeurrier starting to make his move in all of this, which is good to see that we've actually got a good battle starting to form, not only at the head of the field, but there's also plenty of battles in positions up and down the field. In actual fact, Will Devenish with his 4th place finish has actually moved ahead of Brendan Ross for 3rd place overall. In actual fact, Mitchell Hathaway and Will Devenish are tied on points there as well. Now, the points finish will go to Mitchell Hathaway because he has a race victory compared to Will Devenish, who unfortunately only has 3 podium finishes, a 2nd and a 3rd at Symmons Plains and a 3rd at Phillip Island. So the 1st place for Mitchell Hathaway at Adelaide is the tiebreaker when it comes to points. Race victories outranks podiums when it comes to deciding who is in what position on the point standings. But that is where it all stands for the time being. We've got 3 minutes left in this session. We'll pick up the action in just a few moments while we finish sorting out the points, so that way I can help the boys like such as Brenton Foley and co sort all that stuff out. Right now the points have been saved, and we will pick up the action now actually from the race session, or from the warm-up session. So we flick through the screens, here we are, and we've got the PBF guys running line astern at the moment in this session. We've actually got a fair few cars on track at the moment, about half the field just getting their eye in again during this warm-up session. A lot of the time in the longer format races, the drivers will come in and practice their pit stops and pit ins and pit outs. They don't so much have to worry about practicing them here, but as we've already seen from race number 1, when you get a penalty or some damage like Ricky Slick did, you do have to know how to get on and off pit road, and we believe Ricky Slick may have deliberately released the limiter a little bit earlier to make sure he stayed ahead of the safety car and copped the penalty on the chin, but also that he would stay on the lead lap as well, that he wouldn't lose a lap. Potentially he would then be in a position to capitalise should something have happened to any of the other drivers in the field over the course of the remaining laps. As it turned out that there was still a few people battling for position, but he didn't really make very many inroads after that little drive-through was over and done with anyway. It's ticking down with 1:30 to go. We spoke about this livery that Brenton Foley's running on this particular car. Now, drivers are allowed to run some once-off liveries. We saw Phil Boak had a once-off livery of similar nature at the last round at Perth. But if you have a look at this car from Brenton Foley, if you're a supercar enthusiast, and I'm sure Hans Brunswick will be watching this broadcast with much enthusiasm, he will probably recognise what this livery is. It's a Craig Lowndes livery from the 1999 season. This livery made an appearance after Craig Lowndes had had his accident at Calder Park, and they had to go back and they got the other car and they reversed the livery, so the blue at the front and the red at the back, as opposed to the red at the front and the blue at the back on the standard HRT livery at the time. So Foley's opted to run that particular livery as his once-off livery, and his teammate ran a similar livery, the Holden livery, at the last time out, which was the correct way around, not the way that Foley has it today. So a little bit of piece of history there for you. Foley obviously been a long time Holden fan, and very much a fan of following the supercars, so he's got a lot of, I'm sure he's got a lot of Holden banners and a lot of all sorts of things, paraphernalia Holden in his household. Hence his decision to run this as his once-off livery. Alright, well the clock has gone to zeros, and we're not too far away from getting this session underway. As our trackside cameraman just has a few odd moments waiting for the session to finish. Now there is a little bit of talk that there might be a couple of stewards incidents that might have to be looked at after this race is over and done with, emanating from race number 1. Obviously the second safety car restart is going to be an issue. The incident on the very first lap is going to be an issue. There's also potentially some talk about the drivers at the restart on both safety car restarts maybe having to be looked at, although that's unconfirmed, but there's some rumblings that maybe the restarts may not have been entirely tidy, and there might be a little bit more water to flow under the bridge after the night's racing is over and done with. So don't count out any future protest or change of position for any of the standings. It's wrong for us to speculate, but that's just what we're hearing on the ground, is that there's probably going to be a few incidents looked at emanating from race 1. So I'd imagine that the driving standards will be reinforced to all the drivers for this second race. Hopefully we can get 20 laps in the books without a safety car. It'd be great to see it. Just waiting on the last of the runners to make their way onto the circuit, onto the starting grid, and then we will be right to go. Again, Commodore's occupying the front row, although this time it's a VF on pole position on the inside of the circuit, and the ZB on the outside in second place. And we're away on the formation lap. And it's the 015 of Phil Boak on pole position for PBF Race Engineering, and taking it out hard on this warm-up lap. Pole sitter and race winner from race number 1 this evening, JP Coeurrier, starting on the front row, so does his chances of picking up some more points no harm at all. And PBF occupy the third grid spot as well through Brenton Foley, a little bit better than what he would have, what he ended up with out of the first race tonight. Will Devonish, starting out of P4, is 2 grid spots lower than what he started in race number 1. Still in a strong position to start off for this second race, as is this man, Josh Ben, started in 3rd place on the previous race and back in 5th place for the start for this particular race. Keep an eye out for this gentleman again and see if we can finally hook that turn and speed up. Steve Burko, great qualifying session from Steve Burko up there in 6th place. So the second of the Falcons. Now we're just looking to see what's happened to Aldo Benedetti. We're looking to see what's happened to him, because I think he was a bit further up the field than what he should have been. Mitchell Hathaway in 7th place there for HDS Racing. Billy Douglas Salonga, his teammates. So teammates occupying the 4th row of the grid. Dwayne Davies P9 for D2 Racing. And Termo rounding out the top 10 again for Castrol and the 715 Nissan Altima. A pair of PBF cars on the 6th row of the grid. Ricky Slick in 11th, Brennan Ross in 12th. Followed by Brownie, who was the unfortunate victim in some of those turn 1, 2 incidents on the first race. His teammates alongside him on the 7th row, so Brownie and Cracker together. Mike Coulston and Scuderia Alitalia in 15th place, Roddy alongside in 16th. Followed by Gary Neville. Cam Rutledge is making an appearance. Glenn Miles is here as well. He's at the back of the grid, didn't set a lap time. Aldo Benedetti, who set the pole time in the last-ditch effort, not taking the race start, so therefore handing pole position to Phil Boak. Everybody on the grid moves up 1 spot, so unusual to see why that's the case, but it looks like it may have been a once-off appearance for Aldo Benedetti. Now that may alter the point standings depending on if they elect to count his points or not, but we'll soon find out. Everyone's in position, lights are going, time to go racing again for race 2. Away we go. Great launch, JP Coeurrier from the outside. He nailed it absolutely to perfection. Boak had a bit of a hesitant moment and didn't quite get going as he wanted to. JP Coeurrier leads comfortably into turn number 1. Great launch, bit further back. Devonish has moved up to 3rd. Foley's been pushed back to 4th. Ben's on the outside of Steve Burko, who's having a look down the inside of him at turn number 3. Gets the job done. The HDS teammates look like they've come together in the background. Who's that that's gone through ahead? It looks like it might be Mitchell Hathaway, pops out the other side in the 0-2. We'll get a read as they come through the first sector as to who that is back there. I believe it is Hathaway. No, it's Douglas Salonga. So Hathaway went off the road. He's now down to 9th. Dwayne Davies up to 8th as well. Brennan Ross has made his way inside the top 10. What's happened to Termo? He's had a shocking start. He started 10th. He's not even registering on the radar. So he's there. He is down in 18th. Wow. So the Castrol Nissan has gone backwards and in a big hurry. Josh Ben very sideways off of turn number 9 as well. We go back to the front. Boak sticking like glue to the back of that 888 Commodore of JP Coeurrier. I'm going to try and make a fistful of it here. Commodores 1, 2, 3 and 4. Falcon 5, Commodore 6, Commodore 7th, 8th, Falcon 9th, Commodore 10th. The Commodore dominated field. Race 1, lap 1's in the books. 19 to go. Coeurrier with a 3.5 tenth of a second lead. And now really being harassed by Boak here. Was there someone going wide there in the background? It looks like it might have just been a bit of a lock-up. Boak's close. Sizes up. Coeurrier very close. Thought about it into turn 3. Decided, nope, I'm going to just wait my time and have a bit of another crack later. Foley's harassing the back of Devonish as well. And Steve Burko's trying to buy into that battle. Josh Ben's lost a bit of his mojo at the moment. He's dropped right off the back of Steve Burko, so maybe a little bit of trouble there. He's falling back into the clutches of Hathaway and Douglas Salonga, so they've not only swapped positions, but Hathaway's gone from 9th back up to 7th, and they're back where they started in 7th and 8th. We'll stay with this battle for the lead for the moment. and see if Phil Boak can pull anything off out here out of turn 9 and down into 10. No, he had a bit of a wiggle and coughs up a couple of car lengths, so now a bit too far back to challenge into the braking zone. Devonish has got a little bit of a gap on Foley as well. Steve Burko's having a really good run too. He's staying right on the back of Foley. Down to turn 11, where so many drivers have made mistakes this particular race weekend, overdriving the car. And the lead 5 have just broken away here. They're not too far apart in terms of distance. They're covered by, well, you can see them all in the same shot there. They're all covered by less than 2 seconds as they come across the line. And then there's quite a gap back to Josh Ben, who's pursued by Hathaway and Douglas Longer, and a drive-through penalty for Rhodey already. So I dare say that he's already gone a lap down, so he's come into the pits for some sort of damage and now ends up with a drive-through penalty to go along with it. And the helicopter cam back here. And Foley's just dropped back from Devonish's rear bumper at the moment, and they're just starting to string out a little bit here. The real battle is on at the front, Coeurrier and Boak. Looking down the field here as well, Brendan Ross has moved up ahead of Brownie now into position number 9. He needs every point he can get at the moment. Actually, let's see if we can pick up Brendan Ross. Here he is. Actually, in fact, got quite a margin on Brownie as well. And Brownie's had a moment down here at turn 7. He did that before in the previous race as well. Got his braking all wrong for turn 7. Coughs up a ton of positions there, at least 4 by my count, or 3 or 4 by my count. And now slots back into P13. Mike Coulston. Oh no, he's had a moment. He's had a bit of a moment. And he cut across the front of Ricky Slick there as well, who gave him a helping hand onto the infield. So that'll be a racing incident. There won't be any penalties to come out of that. JP Coeurrier with the fastest lap time that time around, 23.8. And here's Cam Rutledge on the back of Ricky Slick as well. Cam Rutledge was 4th in the driver's standings coming into tonight. He's been pushed down the order a bit now as a result of Foley moving ahead of Brennan Ross, and also the likes of Devonish and Hathaway getting ahead of Rutledge on points as well. So he needs points. He needs points from tonight as well. At the moment, 11th will give him a nice small section of points, but he certainly want more, and he's going to be eyeing them off in the form of Ricky Slick's 10th position at the moment. Battles all the way up and down the field. Which one do we stick with? Oh, a little bit of a moment for Cam Rutledge. Is it just it's just our broadcast. I have a bit of a heart attack moment here. Ricky Slick's gone wide, but going the long way is Cam Rutledge around the outside of turn number 8. He's going to be on inside for turn 9 if he can hold it. No, he can't. That was a nice move there, but Ricky Slick goes wide at turn 9. Rutledge is now on the wrong side for turn number 10. Nice little exchange between these two at the moment. Very, very clean. No touching, but very, very fair and very respectful. And Rutledge has had an issue, and Rutledge is out. I dare say that's going to be an internet disconnection drama for Cam Rutledge. He's had a few issues all night, so sadly for him, out of this race. Let's go back to 4th, and actually let's go back to 8th, 7th and 6th here. So Dougal Salonga pursuing Hathaway, pursuing Josh Ben. And Josh Ben's really dropped away from the lead 5 at the moment. In actual fact, we'll go up to the lead 5 as well, because Steve Burko was really close to the back of Brenton Foley, and you can see Foley continuing to lock up, make a few little mistakes here and there, and Burko's right with him. He's going to pounce if there's any trouble, as long as he doesn't make a mistake like he did just there. Just drove it in a little bit too hard there into turn 8. Foley locking up again down into turn number 9. Termo getting out of the way. So Termo's had a shocking lap and he's had to come in. So I'm wondering whether or not Rhodey and Termo have come together on lap number 1 and has resulted in not only both of them going a lap down, but also Rhodey having his penalty for going through the lane. So we've lost Mike Coulston, we've lost Gary Neville, we've lost Cam Rutledge. So we've lost 3 of our 18 runners that started this race. Coeurrier's just stretched his margin out in front now to 9/10 of a second over Phil Boak. So he's got some breathing space. We've got 5 laps in the books now. Burko's doing some nice consistent times there. You can see his best is a 24.2. He did a 24.3 that time around, so he's matching Foley for lap time. Really found some pace. Let's have a look at where his finishes have been in the season so far. So only one DNF on the season. And his best result was a 4th place finish in the first race at Simmons Plains. So this will go alongside that quite nicely. He's had a couple of 8th places. It's 2 8ths, 2 10ths, and an 11th. And the only DNF he had was at the Phillip Island round. You can see Josh Ben and Mitchell Hathaway have just broken away in the background. In actual fact, there's been a change of position there. These two are going side by side again. So Ben made a mistake. Hathaway got up the inside. And then the favour was returned. And this is a nice clean exchange here, although Josh Ben's in the marbles there, and he's probably not going to get the drive off the turn that he wanted. Or is he? Looking to the outside to the inside, and Hathaway just decides to drive it straight down the middle of the road. And a great exchange, and the passing move has been done. So Hathaway can now set his sights on the rear bumper of Steve Burko, who's some 6 seconds nearly up the road. If he can get going, maybe drag Josh Ben with him. Josh is a little bit wide there off the final corner. And that'll give BDS a little bit of a sniff, but he's not quite close enough to have a stab here down into turn number 1 unless he wants to have another go at that move that he pulled at the second safety car restart. But Nup decides I'm going to give it a miss this time. Let's rejoin the battle here because Burko is finding time in Sector 1. He was able to range up on the back of Foley, but then Foley just seems to pull away a little bit here through the turn 6, or 5, 6 and 7. And then falls away. Let's have a look at this battle up front because this is starting to hot up as well here. Coeurrier's come back to Phil Bogue. That gap was out to 9/10 of a second at one stage. It's now 2.5 tenths. Now, Coeurrier's just put the lights on. I'm assuming he's got some lap traffic coming up by the looks of things, and yes, he has. He's got Glenn Miles, and we've got Rhodey just ahead of him. Now, Rhodey's a lap down. Glenn Miles is on the lead lap, or will be on the lead lap until he gets past. And he stays wide, Glenn Miles. Good job. Lets the leading 3 through. Foley will be the next one to challenge, and Glenn Miles stays wide and lets them through. Good job. Actually, in fact, goes into the gravel trap. Rhodey does the same thing, lets them all through nice and cleanly, so does not interfere with this battle. That's raging on and been raging on all race so far. This is as close as Boke has been to re-inheriting this lead. No, JP drives it fairly down the inside. One move, you're allowed to defend once. You're not allowed to defend by coming back across the track. A little bit of Morse code on the rear bumper there. He's saying, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. So far there is no room to get down the inside of the 888. And what about here? A sneak attack maybe down into turn 7. Very, very close. But there's really only one line through there. You've got to commit to the move very, very early. Now broadcaster's having a few little jitters. But it's not detracting from this battle we're seeing on screen at the moment. Boke a little bit sideways. Devonish not close enough to capitalise. And the 4th and 5th place are not out of this one yet either. Having a look a bit further back down the field as well, Hathaway and actually just seeing here that it might be a bit of a timing glitch, I think, as well. And yeah, it's now corrected itself. Hathaway's actually driven away from Josh Bennett and Billy Dougal-Salonga. In actual fact, there's been an exchange of positions between Dougal-Salonga and Josh Bennett as well. And then it's back to Brennan Ross and Ricky Slick rounding out the top 10. Pace is somewhat mooted at the moment. It's in the 24s and 25s. Coeurrier continues to hold. He's definitely being made to work for this one. And Will Devonish is right there to pounce if these top two come to blows. Lap 9. Still nothing separates these top 3. They just can't find that little bit of extra space that they need to make a passing move. Now there's a blue flag being shown here. I'm not sure what's happened here. There's a little bit of a timing glitch going on with our screen. You can see it says Coeurrier is 7th and Devonish is 1st with Foley 2nd, but I think that'll probably sort itself out once we get down to the second timing split, which is just off the exit of turn 10. You half expect it to sort itself out, and there it goes. It sorts itself out. There was definitely no way that was a permanent grid order there on the left-hand side of your screen. Just a little timing glitch with the way the track is set. This is obviously a custom modified track that does not necessarily belong in AMS in the default package. Coeurrier's just stretched his lead out a little bit here. And a good lap time this time around, 24.4. His best is a 23.8. And they're all doing 24s. The top three doing 24s. Foley's now managed to kick away from Steve Burko as well, as Devonish was hanging the tail out there through turn number 2. Well, Foley's had a bit of a lock up there. Steve Burko was right with him, so half distance lap this time around. Staying with the leaders. None of them, not one of them, can just seem to find that little extra 2 or 3% that they need to change positions. Let's have a quick flick through the field. So your top three are on screen there. Coeurrier, Boak, Devonish, Foley behind him, Burko behind him, having a nice run. Hathaway and Billy Dougal-Salonga occupy 6th and 7th. Josh Ben, they're in 8th. And then it's Daylight back to Brennan Ross in 9th. And Ricky Slick rounding out the top 10. Dwayne Davies is closing on the back of Ricky Slick as well, making it an interesting battle between the friends. Brownie rounding up Glenn Miles there, who's a lap down. Occupies 12th, at least he's having a trouble-free run at the moment. Termo in 13th. Glenn Miles is 14th, and he's the first of the cars he's the second of the cars a lap down, and Rhodey's 2 laps down, but still going, but is minus a bonnet. So suggestion is that he did come together with, I would say it's probably a Neville or a Coulston or something at the beginning of the race there, or Termo potentially. We'll find out probably after this race is over and done with. Rutledge, Neville and Coulston are out of this race. And Boat continues to harass rat-a-tat-tat on the back of that ZB Commodore, and there is definitely no way through at turns 3 and 4. Coeurrier continues to hold on and hold off the challenge from Phil Boak for the time being. Now, Boak's probably got to think championship here. He doesn't want to do anything silly like he's just done behind the scenes, and he's gone around. The minute I start talking about it, he coughs up what was set to be a certain second place if he kept his act together, and around he goes at turn number 7, and he did it all on his own sim as well. What a disaster. The moment I started talking about he just needed to think championship here and just not get involved in anything, he took way too much curb, unsettled the car. In actual fact, he had the left rear wheel on the grass. It turns him around and spits him out on the wrong side of the circuit, and that is not only a handful of points gone begging, but it's put him back into 4th place. In actual fact, Steve Burko's had a decent lap at some point as well, because he's found his way up into 3rd place. So Devonish has had a bit of a moment and dropped back to 5th. So Devonish, who was in 3rd place not all that long ago, we haven't seen it on our screens, but it was Coeurrier from Boak from Devonish, and now it's Coeurrier from Foley from Burko. So the guys who were in 2nd and 3rd place just a few moments ago are now in 4th and 5th place, and Steve Burko's on the podium, set himself up for a podium. He's actually got 2.5 seconds on Phil Boak at the moment. I'm sure he'll have his elbows out to defend that 3rd place. He'll definitely be looking on for a podium if he can get it, but he's got the balance of 8 laps to go, plus the lap that they're on right now. There he is, the number 5 in the Top Gear Racing Android, BP, Starbucks, whatever you want to call it. A beautiful liveried car. There's the gap back to Phil Boak behind. And that really has given a free kick to JP Coeurrier, because he was being harassed, and harassed in a big way, by Phil Boak for the first half of this race. And he's got 3.2 seconds on Foley at the moment, and this is good for Foley on his teammate, because this means he'll claw back some of those points that he's lost to his teammate over the course of the opening third of the season. in his defence of his title. So Foley is carrying the number 1. And for those of you who don't remember, he did win the Supercars in AMS Oz last year. Hence, he's carried the number 1 over into the Super 2 season. And currently lies second in the standings, but he's got points that he needs to make up on his teammate here. The gap at 3 seconds between first place man Coeurrier, second place man Foley. There he is. Steve Burko's had his advantage over Phil Boak chopped into by about half a second in this lap alone, so he might struggle to hold on to third place before this is all said and done. In actual fact, looks like he's driving the car a little bit too hard here. Devonish in 5th. Hathaway's managed to latch onto the back of him. In actual fact, he's dropped his teammate Billy Douglas-Salonga to the tune of about 4 seconds now. And Josh Ben is a further few seconds behind him. But this will be the battle I'm going to be interested to see, is how Steve Burko goes fending off a rampaging, hard-charging Phil Boak for the remaining 7 laps. Can he do it? And can he get himself his first podium finish this season? As I said before, his best place finish in the season so far was 4th place the first race of the Simmons Plains round. Quite a number of weeks ago, actually, probably about 2 months ago. Ever since he's changed the front on that car, seems to have found a little bit more pace, a little bit more happy with himself. He actually had a teammate here for the Barbagallo round. Unfortunately, Zach didn't finish, also running the FGX Falcon. Roadie's off the road there, and I think that might be Roadie done. I don't know if he's killed an engine there, and yeah, not moving. I dare say I'll be getting a visit from him. We got Josh Ben's in the pits, so Josh Ben having some sort of either damage issue or that, but he's come in and changed tyres and sorted himself out. That drops him right down the order to 12th though, so a bit unusual what's happened there. Normally don't expect to see pit stops in a sprint race, but nonetheless he's been in the pits and he's exited. Actually, Roadie's managed to get himself going here. Turmo's had a moment and spun at turn 8. Looks like he might be okay though, Turmo, and yeah, he's got himself going again, so we stay green, no yellow flags. Let's rejoin the race lead-up. He's got his gap out to 5 seconds now as he works lap 15 of 20. Green so far, so planted through turn 3. Foley's still in hot pursuit, but unfortunately for him, losing time, but probably needs to think a bit more here. Now, Glenn Miles is going to become a cork and a champagne bottle here if he is not careful. He gets out of the way just in the nick of time for Burko, Boak and Devonish to sail through. And Burko's off the road. Burko's off the road. He's going to cough up not only 3rd place, but 4th place to Devonish. And Boak goes back through to 3rd place. So, mistake from Steve Burko there. Let's see if we can go on board with him for this replay. Let's see what he did wrong. Just understeered. Carried a bit too much speed into the turn 5 left-hander and just understeered wide. And that's all it took for him to go off the road there. So now puts him back into 5th place for car number 5. So still have gone for a good result, Steve Burko, but would have been great if you could have held on to that podium. But the battle for the 3rd place on the podium is now Devonish chasing Boak. And they've got 5 laps to sort it out. It was great to see Devonish charge back through the field after the second safety car, after what looked like Foley gave him a bit of a tap. Now, we've had a bit of a chat during the break between races to see if there was a tap there, and it didn't appear like there was on Foley's screen, so that one yet to be investigated a little bit more. It certainly looked a bit strange, but didn't look like either that or the car just suddenly snapped around on Will. Nonetheless, he's in 4th place where he finished the last race, and he's really got a prime opportunity here to snatch a podium finish and add to his tally of podiums. He's got 3 on the season already, a 2nd and 2 thirds, and ideally love another one apart from his couple of disconnections that he's had from Adelaide and from the second round of the Albert Park round. A second, 2/3, a fourth, another fourth tonight, and a fifth at Barbagallo. So he's had some good points finishes. And consistently up the pointy end of the field. We really flew the car through the turn 11 there. Really trying to stick to the back of this car. Had Boakes driving like glue. And the draft is not as powerful, we said before. This front straight here is really not long enough coming off the type of corner that is turn 12. You really have an opportunity here. Has a look at the inside. Oh, Boak drove it in very, very hard. He was on the rear brakes there. And the car would look like it was going to get away from him, but he somehow managed to save it. Devonish was right there, and still right there. Meanwhile, out in front, Coeurrier continues to extend that margin. It's now out to 5.3 seconds. Foley's probably all but given up hope now of trying to run down the race leader unless he makes a serious mistake, but this is where it's at. Oh, and there was a little touch there on the back bumper from Devonish on Boak. Probably just unsettled Devonish more than it unsettled the man at the front. Josh Ben's bolted on some new tyres at that stop, and he sets the quickest lap of the race at 23.6. Devonish shows the nose. And now this is an opportunity here. Down the inside will be the go here, but Boakes awake to it, defends the line. He can't go any further on defence here, so Devonish is going to say, you know what, round the outside. I can't make it happen, but Boak escorts him wide. Devonish will have another look here down the inside of turn 12, but he's on the wrong side for turn number 1 here. On the switchback, is he going to have a dive? Getting closer, closer, closer. Boak saw him coming, gave him a bit of space, but that's compromised him for turn 1 and turn 2. Devonish now has the inside run for turn number 3. Is he close enough? No. Boak sees him coming though, and just giving him enough space there in case he does decide to run it down with his elbows out. Good little exchange between those two. Boak defended fairly on the run down to turn 11, but he did escort him a little bit wide at turn 11. Probably get away with that. Lap 18 of 20, and this is where it's at for third place. Our race leader is on the run down to turn number 10. He's been punching out very, very nice lap times. Gap now out to 4.7, so he's had a little bit of a scruffy lap this time around. And the gap has come back a little bit. And Devonish is through. No, he's not. Boak gets him on the switchback. So Devonish had to go down the outside at turn 10, and Boak held the inside line. So this battle is going to go all the way to the flag. Boak's wide. Devonish down the inside here between 11 and 12. No. Just not able to go that last little bit under brakes and hold off Phil Boak. These two are really playing for keeps. Behind them, Mitchell Hathaway has managed to get past Steve Burko for 5th place somewhere in the last couple of laps as well. In actual fact, it's probably been done fairly recently, judging by how close those two are together. So Hathaway continues to put a couple of good finishes together. So 3rd place last race, 5th place so far this race. Still a good haul of points. Steve Burko in 6th place there. Dwayne Davies is now up to P7, ahead of Ricky Slick. Josh Ben is not too far off the back of them with fresh tyres on, and Brownie's inside the top 10. Behind them, Billy Dougal Solonga's just DNF'd as well. He'll be passed by Brennan Ross and Termo in the next couple of laps as well, so we're not sure what's happened to BDS in the last couple of moments. Let's go back to this battle too. Dwayne Davies defending like his life depends on it from Ricky Slick, and then behind them, it's who's that behind them? Is that Brennan Ross, I believe. That might be a lap down, I think. Yeah, he's actually he's actually a bit further behind than what he actually needs to be. So Brennan Ross is the one actually trying to get past Dwayne Davies here, and Ricky Slick's the one that's out of position. Well, let's go back to this battle over 3rd place, because These two are on the final lap, and it's now or never for them. So far, Boakey has managed to hold off the advances of Devonish. And a bit of dust being kicked up out here at turn 4. Looks like it might be a lapped car. Has Boak done enough to hang on here? Yellow flag, and that's for Rhodey. Now he's parked on the inside of the circuit, so he's parked out of the way, letting the leaders go through. And so maybe it's Brownie doing the same thing. Let's pick up our race leader. We started from second place, but he got a superb launch at the green flag from the outside, from the dirty side of the grid, at that point in time it's probably part of the racing line as you work your way across, and he's never been headed since. He had to survive a threat from Phil Boak at the start of that race, but again, shows his talent, and 3 race wins in a row for JP Coeurrier, 300 points for tonight's proceedings, and 600 points in the last 3 races overall. So really coming to play in the AMS Oz Super 2 season. Brenton Foley picks up second place finish, so another podium to go with the 5 that he already has on the season. Phil Boak manages to hold off Will Devonish in the end in a frenetic finish. I'll be keen to talk to those two at the end of this and see how that went from both their points of view. Mitchell Hathaway, who's already gone back to the garage, has decided to finish 5th. Steve Burko was in the thick of it, was there and thereabouts. He was up to 3rd at one stage, but unfortunately a little error for him going off the road at turn 5. Coughed up what was set to be a good battle for 3rd place and 4th place with Phil Boak. Ricky Slick's now going to come down to the line and take 7th place. So great job from Ricky Slick, adds to his points standings. Dwayne Davies, he's going to pick up an 8th place finish on today's race. Josh Ben, despite the fact that he came in and had a pit stop, put some fresh tyres on, he finishes in 9th place overall. Rounding out your top 10 is Brownie. So we did see Brownie off the road on that last or second last lap, just getting out of the way of the race leaders. So he finishes in 10th. Remaining classified finishers, Brennan Ross will finish that one in 11th place. So having been right up the pointy end of the point standings, well, Termo's looking decidedly less for wear there. I'm not sure what on earth has happened to him, but nonetheless he's finished the race in 12th place. And now Billy Dougal-Salonga has actually didn't finish that race, so despite the fact he's 13th, he's not going to be classified, whereas some of the others, we're going to have to see what the point standings actually make out. But definitely an interesting night's racing and some really ripper battles up and down the field. And we're just going to wait for our drivers to make their way up to say hello and give us their perspective on how things have gone. In the meantime, we will add to the point standings and we will start to work out very quickly how everything is going. So another race win for JP Coeurrier. So 3 on the trot for the man from JP's Sim Shed, and he's starting to make a habit of things here. Well, what we are going to do while we wait for the last of the drivers to make their way in is I'm going to turn first and foremost to 3rd place man Phil Boak. So Phil, another podium. So 2nd place in race 1, a 3rd place in race 2. You were harassing JP for the first half of that race and rather unsuccessfully weren't able to find a way past, but then a mistake on your part put you all the way back down to 5th, and you managed to somehow hold off a rampaging Will Dev for 3rd place at the end of that all. You didn't have it your own way this race, but you were dishing out as good as you got it.
Oh yeah, I was having a fair crack. That was a bit sweaty with Will. It was good fun, but geez, it was on. He was definitely quicker, and I was just adjusting bars, trying to get the car to come back because I just lost it a bit. But geez, it was on. It was good fun. But yeah, the start of the race was great. I had a heap of pace. I was a hell of a lot quicker, especially in Sector 1. Mills sector was quicker. I would keep getting out of position into the run in the sector 2. And sector 3, I think, were pretty even. I didn't really take much notice. But yeah, no, it was definitely on. It was good fun.
Yeah, that certainly looked from our point of view like you're defending fairly, but as I said, up for that first half of the race, you were dishing it out as good as you were getting it at the back end of the race. You were really giving JP a hard time. You weren't letting him get away up until you made that mistake. Was it just driving it a little bit too hard, or just getting on the accelerator a little bit too early? Because we know that some of you like to drive with that flamboyant driving style, and you ended up with a left rear tyre on the grass when you decided to put the power down, and around she went after the exit of turn 7.
Yeah, I think we went into the corner before, and I was sort of half having a crack, and then I think JP come across, and I was a bit up on the curb, and I was out of position for the next corner. And I think I caught the curb on the inside, and then just sent me wide, and then around I went. So, yeah, my name's definitely on his rear bumper, that's for sure. I had the Craig Lowndes effect going, but yeah, good fun.
Certainly looked like some good fun, and I want to turn to your counterpart in this one, who was giving you a hard time for the back end of that race in Will Dev. Will, great exchange between you and Phil, very, very clean. He escorted you wide a little bit. You were giving as good as you got as well, and you just couldn't find a way past him at the end of the day, but it was highly entertaining to watch.
Oh, it was a lot of fun behind the driver's seat as well. Driven with Phil quite a bit, and whenever we're together, we've driven like that, so it's always been a lot of fun racing.
Hope I was fair.
Oh yeah.
Tried to be.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing. It's been fair to watch you guys, and you and I have had our fair share of battles too, especially in Porsche Cup last year, where we ran side by side a few times in Interlagos. So I know what it's like to be battling side by side with you, and both of you guys looked like you were driving fairly, you were defending fairly, but congratulations, guys. You really put on a good show for that third place. It really lit up toward the end there.
Thanks, Nathers.
Thanks, mate.
Well, let's go to second place man, Brenton Foley, and Brenton, you couldn't quite bridge the gap at the end of the day to JP for the race victory. In actual fact, you started to fall backwards a little bit, and eventually the gap sort of stabilised. How'd you see that race from your point of view? Because you started off the second row of the grid, which you probably would have been relatively happy with, but ahead of you, it was a one-man show pretty much. After Phil sort of dropped back from JP, it was you didn't have much of a highlight reel for me.
Yeah, JP was pretty quick, and I just tried to stay consistent for that second race. Overall, I'm, to be honest, probably quite disappointed with my night, actually, because I was actually much faster in practice and much faster even last year when I had far less experience. So my driving definitely just was not that great tonight, but that happens, and I've got to move on to the next one.
Yeah, you sure do. Well, the positive thing for you tonight, which you're a bit worried about to begin the night, was that your internet connection. You were worried that it wasn't going to hold out, but at least it has. And you continue to take the fight to your teammate and the others around you in this championship, which is the most important thing, because you were a bit worried that if you did disconnect tonight, that it would have been your championship over.
Yeah, I'm still pretty far back. I've just got to keep chipping away at it. My problem is when I'm not right up there, I put way too much pressure on myself, and I think that's probably one of the things that helped with my poor driving tonight. I just made mistakes and ran wide, and yeah, wasn't too flash. But overall, second place is still really good, especially after what happened in race 1.
Well, it sure is, and the good thing is you are thinking about the championship as well. I mentioned it about your teammate when he was sitting there in second place, and that he probably should just start thinking about championship, and the minute I mentioned it, around he went. So you've done the right thing, I guess. You've sort of solidified your championship position. What we're calculating it as is that you're 354 points behind your teammate after tonight's proceedings, but the important thing is there's still a lot of racing to go. So plenty of time to claw back all those points, and we look forward to seeing what you can do at Hidden Valley in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Well, let's go to our race victor, JP. 3 race wins in a row, 600 points in your kitty. You're starting to make a habit of this.
Yeah, well, that was a really fun race. I wasn't expecting to get the jump on Phil off the line. But once I was ahead there, I made that the widest ZB Commodore on track. I felt the love from Phil a few times, but it was all clean racing, all good fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the one thing that impressed me the most, was that you absolutely nailed that start from second place on the grid spot, and you had probably a half a car length and the right amount of gap to slot into quite nicely for the turn one, but he didn't let you get away. He was right with you for those opening 11, 12 laps, and if that little mistake that he made down at turn 7 didn't happen, I was looking forward to seeing that go all the way to the flag, but you had enough of a cushion in the end that you could have afforded to cruise home at the end of the day. And not only that, the amount of points that you've picked up in the last 3 races alone has rocketed you up the standings up into 10th place. So you entered the night in 12th. You've moved all the way up into 10th place, and you're not that far behind the guys that are in 9th and 8th either. So you're looking quite handy, and it looks like you've finally gotten on top of all your gremlins, and the car's starting to talk for you.
Yeah, the car's feeling really good. I'm getting used to this platform. Yeah, like you said, I've sorted out all of my gremlins. My starts are good. I can access my pit limiter now. I just need to try and forge ahead a little bit. A little bit of luck just was on my side tonight. I got a great start off the line. The car was starting to feel really second hand by about lap 17, 18. So I buttoned it off a little bit so I could just cruise home. But that was an enjoyable race, and it looks like it's getting to be a habit having Phil behind me knocking on the back of the car.
Well, we're going to see what happens in a couple of weeks' time if you can continue your feats at Hidden Valley. A couple of sprint races there ahead, scheduled to be up in a couple of weeks. So you're taking the fight to these guys at the front, and that's the important thing. Still got a long way to go in terms of how the championship's going to pan out, but good to see that we've got some good battles up the front and good battles up and down the field actually in the series, and you guys are putting on a good show. And again, job well done. 3 race wins in a row, and we're looking forward to seeing how far you can continue, how long you can continue to take this up to the guys at the front.
Thanks very much, and I'd just like to quickly send a shout out to our naming rights sponsors, Jinx Shifters. Big props to them for looking after us. Yeah, and Jinx was actually running with you at the last round at Barbagallo as well. So second car is there, but obviously not making it tonight. But you've got the sponsorship on the side of the car, and always good to give a shout out to the guys that look after you. Well, we look forward to Hidden Valley Raceway in a couple of weeks' time. And as you can see from the Super2 race calendar that's on the screen right now, that's going to take place on June 20th, so approximately 20 days from now, or 21 days from now. So 3 weeks away for another pair of sprint races. And if you want to know what the point standings are as they stand right now, Phil Boak has a 354-point lead over his teammate at the top of the standings, 1566 to 1212. Will Devonish has moved up into third place, 1107 ahead of Mitchell Hathaway on 1098, and Brendan Ross, who came into the night in second place overall on the point standings, has slid all the way back to 5th by virtue of a DNF and an 11th place finish, and Cam Rutledge also having gone backwards with a pair of with a DNF and a did not start tonight as well. So those two guys in 5th and 6th place respectively, the big losers out of tonight. Well, that was Winton. 2 races are now in the books along with the other 7, so 9 races out of the 21 race season are done. I've been Steve DeVries, aka Nether. We'll see you again next time at Hidden Valley. Until then, please drive safely and bye for now.